with a round of applause. Kind of reminding ourselves, really, that sport is a joyous part of life, but there's plenty of nastiness elsewhere. So they rolled out today. Vincenzo Nibali, the target man. Will it be a big battle for the GC contenders? Of course, it starts here, essentially. First day in the high mountains proper. We have 2 in a row before we head to Nîmes and the rest day, and then it is the brutality of the Pyrenees. Taking on a day such as today, we had some early contenders for the breakaway, and in fact it finally settled itself down, and Visconti rolled through the first of the day's climbs. Only categorized 3, so points 2 and 1 on offer. Visconti and Kadri in the break. Well, it's a quality break out there. Belkadri is a great man to have up the road, and he's giving AG2 Le Mondial some options. Movistar also involved, as you've just heard, with Visconti. Could be a great help for Valverde. Valverde famously doesn't mind the heat at all. And today is very, very hot. 40 Celsius in the valleys. Yep, you heard that right. And that is blisteringly hot. That's the sort of heat where, when you move within the air, it actually feels a little bit painful because the air itself has heat to it. Scorching. So we have our breakaway. It's 9 riders, and they've done a decent job of this. It's just over 4 minutes with just over 100 kilometers remaining. First real climb of the day will be with us in around 37 kilometers time. They're going to roll through a feed zone fairly shortly. In fact, they're just about there exactly now. And then we have an intermediate sprint which sits between 2 climbs, almost in a V. We have the Col de Guise de Quai, which has been renamed recently, the Palaquis. So we'll be going over the Palaquis, so apologies if you're slightly confused. It was renamed 3 years ago, but has featured in the Tour previously. Greg LeMond having some success upon it when it was finished there. We have a 13.5 kilometer descent then off that category 1 peak. We'll have an intermediate sprint before a little ramp up, and then the climb proper to end the day, and it may well end some hopes. The Chamrousse awaits. It's all category, so there's a lot of mountain points on offer, so expect Perito Rodriguez to maybe have a go today. Being Spanish probably does help because it is very warm, as you've just heard. Slightly cooler at the top, about 30 Celsius, so we're giving away 10 degrees from the peak today, which is at 1,730 meters. And the lowest point on the day, around about 300 meters above sea level. So quite a bit of climbing, as you can imagine. And the last 28 kilometers from the intermediate sprint, in fact, is where we have a ramp to where the climb to end the day starts proper. But really, it is 28 kilometers long, then immediately after the sprint. So keep your eyes peeled for that. A lot of options for GC boys, and maybe for these men in the break. And as we fly by, I'm sure you're going to be marking up some holiday options as well. Le Fret looks more than reasonable. No idea about the price, however, but I'm sure the breakfast is impec. Great day for Katusha yesterday. Paolini guiding his man, Kusov, into a perfect position. He took advantage and indeed took the sprint, breaking the heart of Peter Sagan yet again. Sagan's on a coping day today, hoping that Nîmes offers him some better hunting ground and finally might break that duck as he gets into the rest day. Of course, after that, we're in the Pyrenees, and that's going to hurt. The real high mountains, the main mountain test comes then. It's hard to think of the Alps as an entree, but it very much feels like that. And this is the first of 2 real high alpine days, and the first chance for the GC men to be tested, and they will be. It's a question of who reaches out. Having a man up the road is a great help, and Blel Kadri won a stage 8, we remind you, which itself was a reasonable test in terms of altitude changes up to Gérardmer. Don't forget, Kadri beat Contador that day, who is now sadly departed from this race. So Kadri's up the road, and that's a great foil for the likes of Perrault and Bardet. Bardet, the young man, sitting 4th overall at the moment, just behind Alejandro Valverde of Movistar. He's got Visconti up the road, has taken the first King of the Mountains. Valverde loves the heat. Others don't like it at all. And at 40 Celsius, it's very hot. Nibali has some troubles today. We'll find out how he goes. 97.1 kilometres to go. 3 minutes and 50 is the break. Let's do them the honours, shall we? Excuse me, of telling you who they are. Cofidis have Mola in the break. Cofidis regulars out front. Likewise, Breton Sech Environmental. We have Brice Fayeux up there. He, incidentally, is the man who is most of a threat to the peloton at 11.5 minutes down in the GC. The rest hovering around the hour marker. Cofidis as well. This looks like Danny Navarro, and it doesn't look like he's in a great place at the moment. I'm not quite sure what his issue is, and that's a bit of a problem. He's just weaving all over the place at the moment. There has been some illness, incidentally, in the peloton, and we have lost Artavicho due to bronchitis. This doesn't look technical, but anyway, pulling to the side of the road. I'm just wondering whether he doesn't feel very well. Sean, any clue?
No, but it's not looking good the way he's feeding station when you start to really suffer before that, and we can see he's difficulty just keeping the bike going in a straight line.
He's not well. It's as simple as that by the looks of things. Looks extraordinarily pale, and he looks like he's just about to faint. Well, I wonder whether that's just a nutrition issue, Sean, because he's just arrived in the feed zone, and maybe it's just a question of him getting an extra large knock here.
Well, I think it's he's had a sickness, because he must be suffering. It's not just immediately there it came upon him. I think he's probably suffering for a while, and yeah, we did, and we have been hearing, you know, there's some riders having sickness, and it looks like he certainly has some problem.
Certainly does. I'm sorry to bring you in at such a sad moment. We'll keep an eye, but that looked reasonably serious, I've got to say. And we wish Danny Navarro the very best. He does have a man in the break, incidentally. Daniel Oss is up here from BMC. We have as well Jurasek from Lampre Merida. We've got Belkadri, who won stage 8 up the road for AG Tour Milan Mondial, which gives Perrault and Bardet an option later on. Demarchi is here as well. We know he can go well. King of the Mountains from the Dauphiné, from Cannondale. We have got Visconti up the road, presumably will work very well for Valverde, but Navarro's out, Sean. He's abandoned, and this is clearly sickness.
Yes, well, I think you could see that he was going to go out the way he was riding the last couple of meters. We see him there. He seemed to be sick, and what is the problem? We'll have just to wait and see. We'll have to get confirmation on that. But you know, if you've been sick over 24, 48 hours, well, the way the race has been going, it's going to to drain you totally. There's no time to recover. There's not any of these stages where they have taken it easy at all in this race, and if you have a bout of sickness where you get a stomach bug, well, then it's impossible to continue on here.
You see the yellow number on the back of AG Tour Le Mondial's Belkadri. He's got a great chance today, if not to take advantage himself, but to help out his teammates Bardet and Perrault. The man we haven't mentioned is Jan Bekelands from Omega Pharma Quick-Step here, who's 20 minutes down overall. Took a stage in the Dauphiné on the rolling day into Poissy. Sean, it's a decent break, but the importance of today can't be underestimated, really. And the GC boys are not only going to be looking at each other, they're going to try and make some moves, surely, today.
Well, that is the question. We have the first big alpine stage, a mountaintop finish, a long climb here to Chartreuse, and an 18-kilometre climb. That is a long one, warm conditions. Sometimes we can see a great battle. Other times, the stage, nothing happens. All the big favourites just watch each other, and that's bike racing. You never know. With the situation we have out here with the 9 riders in front, unfortunately there are men up here that Katusha and Joaquim Rodriguez is not happy with. Demarchi, of course, is 5th in the mountain classification at 18 points. Belkadri is 6th at 17 points, and that's the reason we see Katusha riding.
Katusha are being busy, looking after the polka dot jersey, and we're hearing that Acevedo's also outshone. This is desperate stuff. Garmin losing another, I'm afraid. And again, no word as to his problem, but we have had a number of illnesses being declared here. Bronchitis for Vichot. That's 3 men down, Sean.
Well, I think we're going to see more of that with the way we have had very aggressive race and bad weather conditions the early part of the race. A lot of riders, injury and sickness, I think there's a lot in there, and with the heat of the last 2 days, it's taking effect.
Certainly is. We're talking 40 Celsius into the in the valleys today. It is cauldron-like, and because we're pre-stormy, it's got that feel of stickiness about the air as well. It's sort of hanging, if you will. Well, it's been a nightmare start today. Not bad for the guys up in the break, of course, and well, there the mountains like a curtain behind which some magicians are presumably going to perform. It's the mountain men's day, and indeed these guys are going to hit them first. They've been over a category 3 climb. They've been through the feed. It hasn't done too much good, or some too much good, I should say, because illness clearly is an issue. I guess with all the temperature changes that we've had, it's not surprising. It's very hot. We have been very wet, and indeed quite cold. And there is Acevedo at the side of the road.
The first real victory I can remember was Junior Nationals. That was in Pennsylvania when I was 12 years old. It was a time trial. So at 12 years old, I was U.S. national champion.
Well, maybe it was on the track. I don't really remember exactly, but I guess it was a small, simple race.
It was really a nice experience to win that race also. I actually didn't train anything for it, and I won straight away. And I got a really nice trophy and a big pokal for it. So that was really something what is still in my head.
My first victory was in the Fort-de-France, a little criterium. We were riding before a professional criterium organised at the time in Martinique. That was my first win, and I was a cadet in my first year. I was super happy, of course.
It's in the place where I live now, where I have my house now. It's 100 meters from there. It was a bunch sprint. So it's strange. I moved there like a year ago. And the moment that I moved there, I said, oh, damn, I won my first race here in front of my new door.
In the province of Siracusa in Solarino, it was a fairly difficult race for our category, and I finished on my own. Chantreville in the cadet category, a great memory. We were 2 for victory. It was a bit of a surprise because the circuit was hard and I wasn't a great climber at the time, so it was a surprise and also a great memory.
We're riding, but some aren't. I've got to tell you, we've lost 3 at the start of the day. 3 to illness. One being bronchitis right at the top of the day. Arthur Vichot is out. Next up, it was Danny Navarro from Cofidis, sick. And we believe same reason for Acevedo from Garmin Sharp. So a lot of teams starting to be a bit short-handed, Sean. You need all the firepower you can get when we get into the mountains today. There are some huge favourites. Let's go through them and talk about who we think is going to be major players today.
Well, I think when you look at the top of the general classification, they're the men are going to be the players in the final again, and it's looking more and more like that once again. Unfortunately for the breakaway, Katusha really pushing on here. We can see the peloton is lined out, a little bit of a side wind there, and that is going to make everybody suffer before you ever get to the climbs of the day. And you know, we know the reason why. Katusha not happy with the break with the 2 men up there, and the mountain classification for Joachim Rodriguez. So it makes the day much harder again when you have to ride at this pace. And you know, the names Nibali, will he be able to hold on to the advantage he had over Richie Porte, 2:23, then down to Valverde, Bardet, Pinot, Thibault, Vanguard and Perrault, all of those riders, Boca Molema, Van den Broek. It will be interesting to see who can hold out there, or maybe, you know, will we see some of the big favourites having difficulty. I think we have to see in the top 10, some of them will have difficulty in this final climb to Chartreuse.
I think you're absolutely right. Back in a moment.
I want to pull this breakaway back.
Welcome to British viewers. Sean, we're just talking about the fact that the polka dot jersey could change hands today. We've got two very, very feisty competitors within that competition who are up the road, and basically Katusha are punishing them right now for not having Rodriguez up there.
Well, unfortunately for the breakaway, and you know, some riders will be really disappointed with this situation. 9 men in the breakaway, but unfortunately they have the 2 men who are, you know, in the mountain classification. And I think Kadri is the more danger one, because, you know, if you allow him to get into the breakaway and take a big advantage, and they go on to the, you know, to the final climb with, you know, 6 or 8 minutes advantage, well then, you know, he'll be after picking up a lot of points, and there's so much up for grabs. Katusha are not allowing this one to get away.
There we are. You've got to ride your fortune. Technicals can happen at any point, and to be honest, Sean, when we get into the climbs, it's going to be a nightmare scenario if you get a problem like Van Mark has issued with right now. We're quite pacey in the valleys at the moment, despite the heat. Let's just dwell on that heat for a second, Sean. There are riders who cope very well with it, and Valverde said, bring it on. 40 Celsius plus, it's my playground.
Well, of course, we know that some riders perform very well in the warm conditions, and Valverde, he seems to be thinking that. Hopefully it works out for him today, because you know, when you announce your colour and you say, well, the heat, he doesn't have that excuse at the end of the day. If he starts losing time, he can't say, well, you know, I got a little bit overheated, a bit of sunstroke. He can't come out with that excuse. But Valverde is a rider who performs in the colder conditions well, so he's an all-rounder, and he doesn't seem to be scared or have any difficulty in the warm conditions. And it's a big advantage, because the way the heat is there today, again, very, very warm in the valley. It's so warm there, and you know, it's going to be energy sapping before you get to the final climb of the day. And then, you know, when you're on the climbs, the earlier part of the Chartreuse climb here will be very warm. As you get up, it gets cooler when you get more up in an altitude, but you know, it will be very, very demanding out there with the warm conditions today.
Top of the mountain finish today is into Chamrousse is busy. There are plenty of camper vans out here, and the crowd will of course be playing its part, but it's such a long climb, 28 kilometers really, although not that many are categorized as being part of it. As soon as they roll through the intermediate sprint, they hit a ramp, then it flattens out, and then the climb starts proper. I think it's worth us telling you exactly what they've got to deal with, Sean, because it has an impact on exactly who might feature today. We're just looking at the crosswind of no note at all. Very light wind today, but there are some real zones of hurt in the climbs that they're dealing with.
Yes, well, they are the big climbs, and you know, the first one of the day, first category, it's a 14 kilometer climb, and you know, there's a lot of very difficult percentages in it. It kicks up a number of times, you know, to 10%, and with that distance gradient and the position it's in as well, you know, it's 45 kilometers from the finish. We could see some problems there if there is some attacks, and the way it's looking now at the moment, with 250 an advantage for our breakaway, it will be interesting to see what way they can hold on. And if they are only out a minute and a half out in front, there's going to be maybe teams that think, well, we can bridge across this gap on the climb, and that's going to make it more difficult. And then of course the final climb a long one, and you know, it's going to be one of those difficult days. It's a 19.5 kilometres, but as you said, in the valley it just goes up gradually all the time, and if they race really fast in the valley, well, you know, it hurts there before ever you get to the climb. And the Chamrousse climb is not the grade, it is not difficult, but still there is sections in it where it does kick up, but in general it's a more of a power man's climb.
There we are. You've got to have the ability to just keep it turning. It's something that Richie Porte does very well. He's not an explosive rider, but he is fantastic at maintaining a high cadence over testing ground. It could be a Richie Porte kind of day, Sean.
Well, it's definitely a climb that Richie Porte will be pretty comfortable on, although Nibali, I think as well, he will be okay on that one. So there's a number of riders there. It's really interesting to see. If you look down the general classification, the other riders, maybe the better climbers, Pinot Thibault, maybe he would prefer it a bit more steep. Bardet, I think he might prefer a bit more steep, or he would be maybe more ease in the steeper sections and the steeper climbs. But again, you know, if you're in good shape, well, then you can, you know, stay in there. And it's going to be a very important day, and it's the first day we have the real mountain, so it's the first big test for the general classification men.
You can see them racing directly to that granite curtain which surrounds this part of the countryside. Beautiful it is as well. They will be climbing, incidentally, from 63.5 kilometres out, and that's going to be fairly soon. As you can see, we're talking 17 and a bit kilometres right now, and at the pace they're going, they will be heading upwards very quickly. In fact, the first climb today is only categorized 1. If it didn't have a downhill section of 2 kilometres within the full length of its 14, then its overall categorization may be different. It's got that downhill ramp because it shouts 6.1%, but you strip out that little 2 kilometre section of downhill within the climb. Slightly bizarre, I know, but it then magnifies the areas that are 9, 10, 12%, Sean. It's a real rude awakening to start us off, and we're there fairly shortly.
It is going to be a rude awakening, and the way the peloton is racing at the moment, well, it's going to be more so. We can see the line out back in the main peloton is really going at a very fast pace, and the advantage is still at 2:31, and our breakaway men are working very well together, so it's not going to come back real quick, and before the climb it's not going to be pulled back. And we can see here that on the climb itself it is a difficult one. There is that rest period in it where it goes down for a bit, but if they race full on this climb, well, the little downhill won't be, it won't be a great recovery for a lot of people. If you're on the rivet, as they say in cycling terms, you're just hanging in there.
Looking at Danny Oss at the moment, he's more of a roller and a reasonable pace man. I think he'll be found out probably first, which is why he's gone off the nose to be caught last, I guess, from the breakaway, if indeed they are going to be, before we get to this climb. Durasek is here, don't forget. He was fifth into Selçuk when Adam Yates did that amazing job. He finished 9th in that Tour of Turkey, incidentally, and there is a Turkey connection here as well with Visconti, who's also in the break for Movistar. He won the Tour of Turkey in 2010 and got a couple of Giro stages, don't forget, excuse me, under his belt last year. Jan Bakelants took a stage in the rolling stage of the Dauphiné into Poissy. We have Blaise Cadry, who won stage 8 here, of course, and he's an amazing foil for Romain Bardet or Jean-Christophe Perrault today, although we think the higher testing Alpine stages, and indeed the Pyrenees, will suit Bardet more than today, which is a real power stage. Alessandro De Marchi is up here. Excuse me, he's the man that beat Froome into Risoul in the Dauphiné last year. He took the King of the Mountains as well, so he's a good man to have up in the break. It's quality up here, you know. Mollard from Cofidis, team now depleted since their principal unfortunately just stepped off ill. Brice Fayeux is also up here. He's the main threat overall time-wise, only 11.5 minutes down, so as you can tell, that everyone who's in the break is no threat time-wise, but it's points-wise in the King of the Mountains competition that's causing the problem for them, because Katusha are chasing on. They don't want them on a big mountain day to pick up big mountain points and basically take the jersey off Perito Rodriguez, who's getting up rather sharpish to try and get over this first climb. I'll be bound. we have had a few teams that unfortunately have diminished. We lost Andrew Talansky from Garmin Sharp, as I'm sure you well know, Langeveld's teammate, and today they've lost another due to illness, I'll be bound, and there seems to be a lot of it washing through the peloton. Now, I say this quietly, but this part of the world suffers from the norovirus rather intensely. Particularly during the winter ski months, but the virus hangs around, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have been a victim of it. I'm speaking from personal experience, incidentally, in this part of the world, but I don't know why. I think it's because they have collected communities of vast amounts of people, both in the winter and, of course, in the summertime as well. But I think it's the winter that does the damage, and then they carry the virus onwards into the summertime. And if that's indeed what it is, we're speculating at the moment, but from personal experience, it is a problem in this area, normally during the ski season. So let's just hope that it hasn't hung around and bitten a few, because Acevedo is out for Garmin Sharp, and indeed we have lost others today, bronchitis, and Navarro also due to illness. John.
Here we are with Aymar Zubeldia, and what do you think is going to happen today? It's a tough day, because I think breakaway will try and get away to the first climb, and then the end is for the favourites of the GCs. First category climb and then the all category climb. I think it's going to be some big differences today. The Col de Parakis is an interesting climb. What can you tell us about it? It's a very tough climb. We've looked at it in the guide, and we know it's a narrow climb, and it's going to be tough, but the descent is very easy, so the road is well done, so there weren't many problems there. Do you have plans of being in the breakaway? We'll try to be with the top guys if we can. If we can, we'll take advantage of it.
Taking advantage of the pace at the moment is Katusha, and Europe Car also very much with an interest in today. And unfortunately for them, Sean, they didn't get in the break, and they're punishing themselves right now, because it's the sort of day they would have targeted.
Europe Car?
Yep.
Well, I think they'll be happy that on the break, because we're looking at it now, they'd say, well, thank God we didn't get up there, because we'd be putting a man and committing, and anybody's up here are really committed. We can see the way they're riding, and Katusha are putting in a big effort back in the peloton. So for the guys up in the break, unfortunately, it's not going to work out, and when they get caught, well, then it's going to be difficult to see them doing anything else in the rest of the day. So the teams that missed it will say, well, we missed it, but thank God we did, because it wasn't the breakaway. It wasn't going to be the successful one for the day.
So we might have a secondary break today. Pierre Roland is the kind of guy who would target a day such as this. He does like higher mountains, though. Tommy Vogler could roll into a day such as this as well and be certainly a feature. We've seen some fantastic climbing going on. Cyril Gauthier, yes, he's another. So Europe Car in the green, at least getting themselves towards the pointy end, but getting a free ride at the moment, courtesy of Katusha, who are just injecting most of the pace. We've got a whole raft of injects going in today, and I think it may well have knocked out our poem for the day, I'm afraid, because there's so much happening. So forgive us for that. We'll presumably try our best to get it in on a longer day, but there you go. Just taking on sustenance. It's a difficult task today. In fact, so much water was taken on in the feed, Sean. They were getting extra bottles. A lot of it was just being tipped over themselves as opposed to drunk.
Well, yes, they have to do that when it's so warm out there. You just, put a bit of cold water on the back of your neck and try and cool down a bit. So extra bottles in the Mosette, and you could see that they were, quite heavy, quite full, and any opportunity, any occasion they can get something to cool down, well, they will do it in the conditions. And in the valley, it is just scorching hot down there, and it's going to be one of these days where it's going to be a killer of a day. in the valley, so warm, and then when you get onto the earlier part of the climbs, you know, the body warms up so quickly when you're making that effort, and as you get further up it does cool down, but still it's going to be, with the programme we have on, weather conditions, it's going to be a day that the riders will suffer big time here. And again, the big change is a lot of riders talking about that, from the colder conditions in the earlier part, suddenly over 48 hours getting so warm, that is really difficult to adapt to, and we can see the consequences maybe in today. We could see some of the men we have up here in the top 10, 12 in general classification losing more time than we will be expecting to do.
This beautiful limestone outcrop, as you can see, and yeah, it's a lovely part of the world. It's very much dramatic, and in fact we're heading to that climb right now, the first of the day. Sean, it's the first major. We've been complaining about the rain, and now we're complaining about the heat. I think we're just feeling it for the riders, especially so deep into this Tour de France, which every single day there's been no real allowance. There's kind of been no transition day. They've all been fought for, and we've got yet another battle raging right now, and there's just no respite, it seems, for anybody out here. And I can't remember a tour that's been this brutal, frankly. It's a word we use quite often, but I really mean it about this tour. It's been hell.
Well, it's been a killer of a race, and you know, what a turnaround. When we started in Yorkshire, the first days the breakaway was left away early, but I think the teams realised that the sprinters teams were going to control, and the breakaway had no chance of surviving the first number of days of the race. But then we got into a situation where riders lost 25 plus minutes. There was teams expecting we had breakaways, but again, there was always some team wanted to chase down. Yesterday we see it was the team of Shimano, Joint Shimano, sorry, and today we have Katusha because of the situation for the mountain classification. Normally the breakaway would ride off today, take 10 or 12 minutes. We would see the yellow jersey team of Astana and Nibali controlling, and it would be an easy part up to the first, 130 kilometres, and then the racing would start, but it hasn't been the case. It's just action all day, as we can see. The advantage coming down 156, so Katusha want to close this one down.
They do, and the bearded form of Paolini working at it, and now Europcar joined the fun.
Here we are with Alessandro De Macchi ahead of this stage. What do you think about the Palanque climb? Well, it's the first true climb of this Tour de France. It's original and unique because it starts in a very aggressive way. It's tough in the beginning, then there's a slight descent, and then a longer part of the climb, longer than 10 kilometers. It's going to be tough. You're still in contention for the polka dot jersey.
La maglia della montagna era una cosa così che poteva avvenire quel giorno. Adesso non ci penso più, anche
the polka dot jersey is a thing that is something that might happen. We'll have to wait and see. I think Purito is going to be a little too hard to overcome, though. I'm hoping I can do a good stage, though. Do you think the polka dot jersey is something for the future? Well, it might be. We'll wait and see.
De Macchi is in the break, incidentally, so he's one of the 9 brave souls who got a gap of just over 5 minutes. It's been pulled back to 1 minute and 53 right now. The reason is we're about to start climbing. It's going to be a swift run-in. We begin around 63.5 kilometers time, so Sean, we're virtually there. In about 4.5 kilometers time the road kicks up, and then the real pain of the day in the heat starts. And I think the lower sections are going to be the most difficult, because down here it is the hottest. It's around 40 Celsius, 30 on top, which is going to feel pretty cool in comparison, but they've really got to attack it from the beginning, and it gets serious very quickly, this climb.
Well, it's a serious day all day. We can see here the way the peloton is closing down, and going to this fourth category climb, the Palanque, which is over 14 kilometers. It is going to be a killer, and the way they're coming into the situation with the breakaway still 148 out in front, they're not going to catch it before the climb, but they're going to try and close it down. The interesting thing will be Katusha, after doing a lot of work. Now we see Europcar, who are coming to the front as well. And if there's a team who really commit on the climb in the earlier part, you don't get that opportunity to settle into the first big climb in the Alps and get into the rhythm. It's going to, you know, start climbing at a very fast rate, and that's where the damage will be done. And we'll see the peloton, you know, it will just blow to pieces if that is the case. But the question is now, will there be a team, you know, capable of doing it and continue making this very fast pace as Katusha have been doing, and as Europcar have taken it up of more recent. But Rodriguez, you know, he could go on the attack if it comes down to a minute on the climb. Then if Rodriguez is in good shape, but he can go across that gap, and will somebody try and go with him? That could be cause a problem, because if there's some other general classification and want to follow, well, then we could see a battle between the general classification starting very early in this stage.
We could do. Rodriguez essentially will act as a magnet, just dragging the GC guys or contenders with him. Those who are nipping at the heels of Vincenzo Nibali once we get into the mountains. It's 1:42 now. It's been a great job by them. Let's just remind you why the push has been had by Katusha. We have a category 1. There is 10 points at the top of it: 10, 6, 4, 2 and 1. Then the all category climb to end the day is 25 points for the winner, 20, 16, 14 and so on for the first 10 riders across the line. 6 riders will get points off this climb right now, and then 10 will get them at the highest level as we finish today. Now, Rodriguez started the morning leading Tommy Vogler, who's also, his team also have an interest here. It was 51 points for Rodriguez, 34 for Tommy Vogler, so 17 separating them coming into the climbs of the day. So yeah, it's clearly something worth fighting for, and both teams are very animated, and as a result it means this gap is absolutely tumbling at the moment. Just over 1.5 minutes as we start our Alpine tests. Welcome back. Just crossing an enormous dam, or barrier I should say, holding back meltwater from the mountains, and that's where we are heading right now. Just under the 63-kilometer to go marker, and the road just starting to ramp up. Here we are. Our breakaway are into the climb, Sean. They're stretching their legs. They're on attack mode.
Yes, and we can see there, you know, De Marchi is not allowing the other riders to get away. We can see Daniel Oss is out front there with another rider from that breakaway, and you know, they're the two men are causing the problem, Daniel Oss and Biel Kadri, and we can see the two of them are you know, still very much up there, and until they are caught back, well, there's going to be no let up back in the peloton. It will be interesting to see as we get onto the climb itself now. Will, you know, this race go on, or will they be settling down? 1:16 the advantage for the moment, and De Marchi, you know, he wants to push on here, and he's one of the guys has really killed the success of the breakaway for today.
There we are. It's dead as a dodo. Daniel Oss is not going to last terribly long here, I'm afraid, on this climb. They're coming out of an extremely hot area. It's all breaking down now. Lamprey with Durasek, the pairing of them, and everyone else playing catch-up just for now from the original break. Biel Kadri, who is a great foil for his teammates, who are very much concerned in the GC, and it's he that picks it up and just grinds into this one with De Marchi on his tail. All hell is breaking loose behind them as well. It's a 1:10 only, so less than 70 seconds now it is, in fact, as the clock ticks down, and it's a full attack going on behind, and it's Katusha and Europcar that are also the main instigators of that pace. Now, it's a very, very warm day, this. I'm not sure how gently they're going to come into this one, Sean, but I imagine that they are going to be at full chat very, very quickly, and we're going to have all kinds of attacks going off the nose. Now, we've got an inject coming in here from the ASO about heat of the day. If anything happens within it, then we'll pull away from it, or at least we certainly shall if we have some drama. So just to warn you.
Well, as the mercury rises, it's not only the riders that need to keep cool, so does the road. A truck carrying 6,000 litres of water travels in front of the race to cool the tarmac down. It's hot on the road, and with the passing of vehicles, it becomes worse. The tarmac begins to melt. It's very dangerous to the riders. Their wheels can slip on the descents.
Les roues de vélo rentrent dedans et c'est les chutes, surtout dans les descentes.
The support truck also takes other measures to ensure that the race is kept safe. These are for the unforeseen events of the day, like closed roads or potholes and other obstacles.
Qui est pas signalé, donc c'est les imprévus de la journée. Température de la surface de
So that's the temperature of the road, 52 degrees, 61 degrees is the record for now. The truck drives between the publicity caravan and the peloton, and one hopes it'll maximise the safety.
Van Summeren unzipped. You've seen others starting to suffer out there. There's going to be plenty more today. We're on full attack mode, sub-attack mode, I should say, from the men in the breakaway. And it's Blaise Kadri of AG2 Le Mondial who wants to go farthest up the road here as quickly as he possibly can, working as he will be as a phenomenal little lifeboat to be bridged over to by the likes of Romain Bardet and Jean-Christophe Perrault. There he is. He wears the yellow numbers of the leading team in the Tour de France, and with 60.1 kilometers to go, there is no let up behind. Holding station though, this extra little kick and the rolling attacks that have come from the break, Sean, have at least matched the pace of those chasing on. And we're already seeing that some of them who've been working hard are actually being found out right now. We're looking at Coquart.
Yes, well, we're going to see a lot of the riders, and we can see the Katusha riders as well peeling off very quickly as we go into the climb here. And numbers, Europcar seem to have the most men on the front, and we can see Reza here is setting the pace for Europcar. Will they continue on? What will the tactic be? Will there be an attack from the main peloton? Because the advantage just 1:14 at the moment as we really go onto the climb. As you can see, 14.1 kilometers, and now it's all about what way the peloton will react. There'll have to be somebody make an attack. And when you look at Rodriguez and Thomas Vogler, they're the men in the mountain classification. If any of them make a move, well then, you know, they're going to mark each other, and will there be other riders wanting to go with them? I'd be surprised if we don't see some of them trying to do something here, because you know, the teams have done so much for them. They have to try and go into the attack, but it depends on as well the Marquez, we can see here, starting to lose ground, and Blaise Kadri, of course, the other one who's a danger man. So it doesn't look like they can stop, because he is mountain classification. Kadri is the one who can become a danger man.
Yes, he is a danger. Don't forget he took stage 8 ahead of Contador and Nibali Port, so he's reasonably handy. That was into Gerard Mayer, which was no flat stage at all. It wasn't quite these kind of peaks, but it certainly was a proper test, and it will be mirrored by the early footings of this climb, shall we say. 59.2 kilometers to go, and it's holding, Sean, the gap at around 110, 115, and it's Europcar who are not quite as capable, it seems, as Katusha as pushing on. Katusha did a good job of grinding into this, and you can see the damage further back. It's the Northern Europeans generally which seem to be suffering, and the big men, the sprinters, most certainly amongst those. I think we're just about to catch up with Kittel. We have seen a little bit further back. It is indeed, he checks the camera, he knows we're coming by and want to have a look. Not being mawkish, but further back, Andre Greipel as well, and plenty of the quick men already being distanced. They're just in coping mode at the moment.
Yes, well, I think you know, the speed we came onto this first climb, immediately they say, well, we're not going to hang on long for here, and they just forms a bus and make a big group of riders to get into the finish within the time limit. And you know, with the the distance to go, as you can see, you know, 58 kilometres to go. They should have not any problem getting into the time limit today, inside the time limit. But out front, as you said, it's Europcar who are continuing on. I think they're going to settle into a steadier pace here, because if you really go too hard into it, well, then you lose the riders very quickly. And this is a long one, as we see just a bit further down there. It's a 14-kilometre climb. You have to calculate your effort.
Great news for AG2 La Mondiale at a moment such as this is that they don't really have to chase on for the time being, because Belcadre's up the road. He's already a stage winner, as you know, and he's in that King of the Mountains competition. Romain Bardet sits in the general classification in 4th place. The French are going nuts about him at the moment. He is a young man with great potential, and he's now starting to admit that he's thinking about a podium. Peter Sagan's thinking about a win. It ain't going to happen today. It might happen on the way into Nîmes, but he's running out of options as well. Beaten again yesterday, don't forget. Christophe edging him at the line. It's a long list of nearlies for Sagan, I'm afraid. Sagan suffering, likewise the Australian champion Simon Gerrans. No surprises in the riders that we're picking out now, Sean.
No, I think it was going to be just a matter of when we would see a big group of riders losing contact, and we're seeing all, you know, the big riders, the more powerful men, the sprinters especially, but also the, you know, the rollers. They're all getting into difficulty very early, and it's not surprising that, you know, we have the Gruppetto form real early, because of the, you know, the speed, the sheer speed of along the valley and into the, you know, the beginning slopes of the climb.
I Am Cycling have an option with Reichenbach, the young Swiss. He's a very powerful man, but also can make some inroads when it comes to the mountains as well. Tongue out, sun up, and it's beating down upon my head. You don't need a lexicon of sign language to understand what was going on there, Sean. It's a hammer, this weather today.
Yes, well, it is going to be a real killer of a day, and we can see Brice Fallou, who was out in the breakaway, but he knocked off his effort earlier on, because he realised that the peloton was coming up, and he is the one who, in the general classification, he's still very much up there. He was, you know, 11:30 down, so I think he's trying to just, you know, conserve a little bit of energy before he was swallowed up by the main peloton, and see can he hold on to this group. But when you're out there in the earlier part of the day, and he was riding as much as the other men in that 9-man breakaway, you can pay the price.
Yes, and it's a heavy one. We've had some tumbles. Going down yesterday was Oliveira, the Portuguese champion. He's back on his bike and wondering about the wisdom of it, I am sure. Tommy Vogler looks a bit second-hand, I've got to say. Unzipped, but it looks like shy of the action, at least for the time being. There's a lot being asked of everyone in these kinds of conditions. We're seeing some real suffering. It's not just the inclines today, it's also the temperature. It is an absolute nightmare out there. It feels uncomfortable just walking around, never mind engaging in this sort of drive up the first Alpine tests of this tour. We've got 2 real climbing days in the Alps before we get to Nîmes and the rest day, and then we start it all over again as our mind turns to the Pyrenees. It's a punishing section of the tour, Sean, and it's where it's going to be won or lost.
Well, I think it's the grounds where, you know, you're going to see who can win this tour, and it's looking more like that today, the way the race is going, unless the, you know, the peloton settle down big time and the big favourites, you know, just knocked themselves out on the final climb of the day. But the way the racing has been so aggressive, and, you know, so pushing on the front in the main peloton after the breakaway to try and close it down, you know, you pay for all of that. And the number of days we've had, difficult days, the heat we're getting at the moment, so warm. It's going to be an interesting one, and we could see some of the general classification men maybe, you know, losing a lot more time or getting caught out more than we would expect.
I think you're absolutely right. Tinkoff, Saxo, and not averse to sacrificing some of their men, but Paulinho was one of those who looks like he's in serious trouble. Michael Rogers and Nico Rush, probably their options for today, but it really is a a hard one, and I'm just wondering whether it's too much. Richie Port is a Tasmanian. It's sort of more temperate there than Main Australia, but he doesn't mind, you know, he can cope with a little bit of temperature as well. Geraint Thomas, remarkably, as a Welshman, seems to be able to do some great things on days such as this, and he's just starting to do a bit of pacing out front. We're looking at Jens Vogt, who looks like he is also one of those who's in a little bit of trouble today. Matteo Totato, there he is, just ahead. Well, DeMarchi's decided that he wants to put a little bit of a gap between himself and those out front, and it looks like DeMarchi's picked it back up again. Bakelants is also staying with him. That's just off camera at the moment, but 57.6 kilometres to go, and it's 1:21. There's going to be some big time gaps out there, Sean, today. Chasms, almost. If you're a GC contender, you've got to stay alert in this heat.
Well, you have to just be alert all the time, and the way the racing is being going, you know, you cannot be but alert. It's really been aggressive again, and now on the climb you have to, you know, stay to the fore in the top 15, 20 riders, and just watch what's happening out front and follow the other leaders and play the waiting game, I think, unless you have another tactic. But normally if you're in the top 10, well, then you probably wait for the final climb, unless you have a tactic with the team to go at a number of riders. And we can hear a lot of the favourites getting into difficulty already, and Kwiatkowski is over-race ready that he's starting to suffer.
He is. It's not been his tour, really. One way he was expected to shine. Tony Martin, you'd be forgiven for allowing him a little bit of respite. He's been amazing during this Tour de France. In fact, got a combativity award on stage 10 the day after, of course, that amazing solo victory into Mulhouse, also with some mountains to be dealt with on that day, albeit not this kind of altitude. So Tony Martin really has burnt himself out for his team. I think he's proven to be an amazing lieutenant and possibly a principal of the future. He's been brilliant, hasn't he?
Well, it's unbelievable when he's out in front, and I think, yeah, today he knows that there's not a lot he can do on this climb and the final climb of the day, so he's going to just get up over this climb. But it's Kwiatkowski who was the one who was, you know, losing out big time, because he is 4:39 during general classification. He would be hoping maybe, you know, to move up in that, or at least hold on to it. But we did see him on the stage to Gerard Mayer, where he was suffering as well, but recovered quite well, and, you know, finished pretty good. Will he be able to do that today? That is going to be a big ask, so he has to, you know, recover before we get to the final climb. Hard to see it happening.
It is. It's a tough day, and it shows no favour, especially with not only the inclines but the temperature, as we've mentioned. Kwiatkowski's a strange one. He kind of blows hot or cold on a day like today, and unfortunately it's cold in the heat that he's blowing. Brice Filleux out in the break, not the first of them to be caught. However, he's about to be, and it's Europcar and Astana that have come to the fore. Sky are hovering as well. It's for the time being, the GC boys are marking each other out. You feel that today might invite an attack. From the break, we've got one, as you can see. It is DeMarchi from Cannondale who's decided to engage in one of the flatter sections right now to put a bit of pace in. It'll kick up again, Sean, fairly shortly.
Yes, well, as you can see there, there's still a long ways to the summit here, over 10 kilometres, and DeMarchi, you know, he is riding real strong, and the last number of days we've seen him do a powerful amount of pulling on the front of the peloton for Peter Sagan. He's up there again today. He's able to get all the climbs very well, and yeah, he is continuing. He's not throwing in the towel at all.
1:19, a little bit more than that now, and the gap just holding. It's a good push going on by DeMarchi. Chasing on as well, we've got Bakelants and Kadri are also involved. Mollard is there. Pinot, as we've seen, is just starting to fade. Nibali, incidentally, is just off the front, as you can see, as Brice Filleux decides to just inject a last little squirt of pace. But it's Astana at the moment that look like they've got strength in depth, Sean, and that bodes badly for everybody else.
Well, they have had an easy ride, of course. They did not do the pace setting where normally they might have had to take control of the breakaway. They haven't had done really a lot. It's Katusha who've done the real big amount of the work with Europcar, and Katusha, for that reason, they have a lot of riders here, but still Europcar with Arashiro still setting the pace on the front. You know, how long will it be before we see an attack from the likes of Rodriguez? He has to go on the attack to take some points, because he's two men for the problem in the general classification for the mountain prize. They're still out in front.
Pierre Roland's just working his way into position. I just wonder whether he's going to light one up early. It's a bit early for my liking, but you never know with Roland. He's been known to go very, very long. John, you've got something for us.
Interview here with Michele Scarponi. What do you think of today? You're going to have some work to do, aren't you? Well, yes. Today's going to be a tough day. There's a lot of heat. We are come to days where we're beginning to feel a bit tired. Two tremendous climbs at the end. I think it's going to show that whoever wants to regain some time on Nibali will have a go, and we'll just try and cover Vincenzo well to help him. Thank you very much and good luck.
Well, we've seen them rolling into the downhill section. It lasts for 2 kilometers, by the way, and it's a bit of a false dawn, as it were. They will be straight into climbing again, and the hardest part of the climb is still very much to come. And as you can see, the Marquis has now found that he is already climbing. There's going to be some inclines in excess of 9%, maxing at about 12-14% in even as they get to the top of this one. They don't reach the peak, incidentally, until 45 kilometers to go, so he's still got 9 kilometers of climbing. It's interesting to hear from Scarponi. It's going to be him and Fulsang that are the last men, so the real helpers for Nibali today, and they've been doing a great job for him, haven't they?
Well, they have been quite a good team around him. We've seen when the occasions were needed, and there need to be something done about making pace in front of the peloton. They were there and they did a tremendous job, but you know, today is going to be an important one. Depending on what happened here, we can see here that they're just sitting on the front of the peloton, hanging around but not pushing on at all, and they don't have to for the moment, because with the breakaways and the riders out front, they are not concerned for the moment, and it's all about getting over this climb and then, you know, getting into the final climb of the day, and I suppose keep men with Nibali as long as possible into the final climb here to the finish.
Niev goes sober. He looks back, and Geraint Thomas just picks up the pace again. It's into a drinks zone. There'll be plenty of these today. They'll be allowed to take fluids from the side of the road throughout. Although the cars will have the same rules. We don't want any congestion, especially on the mountain roads, but a sensible call, Sean, to allow drinks wherever.
Yes, well, I think you know, the commissars will be quite lenient today. They will allow, you know, the feeding to go on for quite a long time. I think in the earlier part of the stage as well, yesterday, normally you do 50 k's before you're allowed to take drinks, but I think yesterday was about 20 k's when they allowed it. So with this heat is normal, and they will be a little bit more easy on that.
I should think so too. The white jersey is on the back of Romain Bardet, we remind you, so don't look for AG Tour Le Mondial colours of the tradition. Brown and white. He is the leader of the Young Riders competition, and he's very much to the fore and watching Nibali, which in this terrain is good for him. He usually prefers it steeper. Europcar doing a fantastic job of just tapping out a rhythm, and there's Pierre Roland just unzipped, as you can see. There's plenty of riders with that style. Chris Horner as well, dancing on the pedals, familiar style with his left shoe just slightly goofy in snowboarder parlance. We are in a skiing area, don't forget. That's his style. And indeed, you've got to be very adept at climbing today. Look at AG2R Le Mondial. They're wearing the yellow numbers with their brown, white and blue. Their principal today, I guess, well, they've got a choice of two. Jean-Christophe Perrault, a veteran, and indeed Romain Bardet, the young man. And indeed, they've got, of course, Belcadre up the road as well. So I think they've got quite a few bullets in the chamber, Sean.
Yes, well, we can see there that they are performing real well, and it's not of recent. Right from the beginning of the year, they had some great results with AG2R Le Mondial, and it's been a good tour from the first 10 days of racing. They have got through quite well, and with Bardet and Jean-Christophe Perrault, they're the riders who do not like the style of racing we've had, the cold conditions, the nervous racing, but they have managed to get through that, and now they're coming into the terrain where they will feel more comfortable and should be, you know, able to maybe go in the attack and try and move in general classification, try to move up. Will it be today? We have to wait and see, but not be surprised, you know, with two men very much in the overall classification. It's a great situation because they can play two cards, and if some of the riders who are further down try to go in the attack in the earlier part of the stage, or the earlier part of the final climb of the day, let's say, well, you know, you can put a man up there and use the two cards you have within the team, which is an advantage.
It's Bekelants that's decided to attack Kadri here, and away he goes. And Kadri, well, he was always going to be a foil, we believed, today, although he's already had his glory, don't forget, taking stage 8 of this Tour de France. And this looks like we're soon going to have a duo up front, Sean.
Well, it will be interesting now to see how quickly Bekelants can ease into the advantage of the marquee. We could see with Kadri there, he knew that he was getting into a little bit of difficulty, but again, there's a long way to the top of this climb, and you know, Belcadre, he can climb. He's quite a good climber. Sometimes you see a rider putting in an attack and taking that 150 metres of an advantage very quickly. But, you know, to hold on to it, that will be the interesting one. As we see Kadri, he is starting to suffer.
It's the heat, Sean, again, and he's not going to be the last today, I'm afraid. And this is Mate, who's made a sub-attack. It was his teammate, incidentally, Mollard, who was in the break, but Cofidis yet again showing their red jersey. And indeed, still, I Am Cycling thinking about individual stage wins, and why not?
Yes, well, I think a lot of teams will be thinking this is the opportunity to get out of the peloton when it starts going at an easier pace. If you're feeling good and you're capable of going in the attack here, it's probably the time to do it. With riders just going out in front, we see Mate from Cofidis doing it, so there's other riders as I Am Cycling, and the teams who haven't got anybody for the final, they certainly have to try and, you know, do something here and get out of this peloton and see can they ease into the advantage, or, you know, pull back that advantage of our men out in front.
I Am Cycling do have a young man who's been bigged up quite a bit. He's quite a rangy figure, is Sebastian Reichenbach, and he's one of those younger riders that's going very well. He was 11th in the GC in Paris-Nice, and we know what sort of a test that is. 4th overall in Tour de l'Ain last year, and got a top 15 spot as well in the Dauphiné, and indeed the Tour of Romandy. So he's been very, very busy. I guess when you come into a tour, Sean, there are some riders that don't immediately shout out at cycling fans. They sort of stay under the radar with results sort of 10 to 15. But if you're finishing those kind of races, 14th and 15th, you're pretty handy.
Well, I think you're in good shape, and that's what the Director Sports teams look at. You know, the races previous leading into the Tour of France. If you're performing well, well, then the selection, you're in there in the team with a chance to get into that selection. But sometimes riders, you know, they put in a real strong performance, like in the Dauphiné, and they target the Dauphiné for many months in advance. They know that is the selection for the final 4 or 5 riders maybe in the team, and they just give too much an effort, and then they arrive at the Tour and they're just totally blown, and you know, they don't recover after their effort. So you know, the Director Sportives also have to be aware of that, and a guy in Dauphiné riding real well is no guarantee that he's going to be there in the Tour.
Gruzdev has burnt himself on behalf of Nibali, and there he is. Plenty more options, and they'll keep putting the hurt on just about everybody, including the GC boys, before you know it. Chris Horner, on his days, has been looking very, very fresh indeed, and I always find him very difficult to read, to be honest, because he always seems to have a smile, even when he's grimacing. He's got a great poker face.
Yes, well, he seems to be appearing more, and we are getting into the terrain where he can be, you know, much more performant. The early stages of his tour as well were not his terrain at all. He would not have liked that, but you know, as the road kicks up, I think we're seeing a bit more of him, and it will be interesting to see what he can do. Will he be capable of going, you know, into a breakaway or an attacking in the final and to win a stage? He is a long ways down in general classification. You know, he's lost 7.5 minutes, but if he gets into a breakaway again, he could pull back a lot of that in minute-wise in one successful break.
This man was in a successful break, but his day's done, and he doesn't want the camera around him at all, so he's clearly suffering, Sean. This is not kidology. He's at the end.
Yes, we can see there that he's suffering, and he's after giving it a very big effort in the earlier part. I think they were hoping that the break would be the successful break, and they'd be allowed to ride off, and unfortunately it hasn't been the case. And some of the guys who really pushed on there are paying the price, and Biel Kadri, as there is many others further down the road.
Yes, indeed. Just saw Micah getting himself into position as well. Tinkoff Saxo diminished, of course, and but unbowed after losing Alberto Contador and indeed Hernandez. They've still got the Roche and Rogers cards to play. I guess if the GC guys start looking at each other, we may have some that didn't immediately come to mind, Sean, by the business end of this day.
Well, there is teams, of course, that have lost their leader, and the tactic has got to change. And when you look at Tinkoff Saxo, it will be interesting to see what they can do. At 50 kilometers to go, I think it's early days yet to try and do something. There's a lot of opportunities, maybe possibly in the valley before the final climb, will it be today for those teams? I feel that some of them will maybe try. We have quite a number of kilometers in the valley, and if you try and go there, you could pull an advantage of a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But with this climb to the finish, a long one, you need to pull out quite a big advantage to be able to hold on all the way to the finish.
Well, we've had we've had a flood, we've had what could be considered a drought today, we've had illness, pestilence, maybe next. We've had just about everything, Sean. I just wonder when the hurt's going to stop, and well, they're going to be imposing it upon each other today, I guess. And Demarchi at the moment is in fact hurting himself right now, all for the good, of course, doing a great job out front. It's like the 7 horsemen of the apocalypse. There'll be the Reaper waiting for somebody at the top. Oh dear, let's hope they all stay safe, for goodness sake, in what is a very, very difficult day temperature wise. We've already had a couple of riders stepped off due to illness. Oh dear, Captain America's in the house, and a few other ninja-styly people. You probably have to be a superhero today to deliver. Unfortunately, another team principal rider has stepped off the bike. Daniel Navarro sick today, and we also lost Acevedo earlier on today, joining Talansky, unfortunately, on the out list for Garmin, and of course bronchitis, sadly, taking off former French champion Arthur Vichot as well. I think that very much courtesy of the temperature changes we've had, Sean. What more can we possibly expect apart from just an amazing test in the Alps? It's bonkers.
Well, it has been one of these special Tour de France's when you look at the big favourites we lost in the earlier part of the race. The way the race has been going right from the start, it's been one of the more difficult tours of many years, and losing big favourites, certainly that has been the case. We lost Cavendish in day one, and then we lost Froome very quickly afterwards, and then of course Contador. So that's been a real special one, but the racing has been very, very difficult as well. And today is going to be the day survival for a lot, and some unfortunately they're not able to survive. If you've been too sick and you're totally out of energy, well then you'll not be able to struggle through today, because the way they've been raced in the earlier part. And when you look at Navarro from Cofidis, he finished 9th in general classification last year, so he is a serious 3-week tour rider. But if you get some sort of sickness, if it's a stomach bug, well, it just drains you of energy, and you go out very, very quickly. Today, will we see general classification men? I think we could see some surprises if they race really aggressive on this final climb to Chamrousse, because it is a long one, 18 kilometres, although the grade it is not great. But if there is a lot of attacks and a lot of fighting between general classification, well then we will see big gaps at the end of the day.
Just seen TJ Van Garderen moving into position, the American. Right now, out front, well, you know the story just for the time being. There's one of the card rolls of the day. It's rather handy. With all technology, Sean, sometimes just a bit of card, a bit of sellotape does the job.
Well, you can see exactly, and you just keep on rolling it as the stage go on. You roll it a bit more, and you can calculate very quickly where you are, because you've been through an intermediate sprint point, or you've been through one of the GPM points, and you can see what's lying ahead. And it's a thing that has been there for many years, and that was back 15 plus years ago. That was I think the guide of the day for everybody. Now with with the computers they have, well, you can have more of an idea, but still a lot of riders prefer to use the old traditional card style.
Both Sean and I still keep a paper diary. Isn't that sweet? 48.6 kilometres to go. Once they peak, and it's going to happen fairly shortly. It's in 2.5 kilometres. There we are. 2.5 kilometres of hurt, and then we've got a long descent, Sean. It's 13k. Then we have a flat zone into the intermediate sprint, 28 kilometres from home. So they're going to deal with the next 20 kilometres fairly quickly, and then it all slows down big time.
Yes, well, it will be interesting now as we get closer to the summit of this fourth category climb, with the advantage, just over 3 minutes. It's amazingly is growing out, so it proves that out front they are working very strong, because back in peloton here, they're still going at a good pace, but advantage the breakaway advantage there. And now the descent, the riders, they can make a good descent, but the valley is going to be the difficult one, because you have quite a lot of kilometres in the valley, and that's where it's very difficult against a big peloton of riders. When you're there out solo or with 2 riders, it's very energy sapping before you get onto that massive final climb of the day.
World champions up here as well, after suffering on a couple of the days out there, and the suffering will go on. This is Sylvain Chavanel. Now, he got himself into a tangle with Andre Greipel, who was there's a lot of finger pointing going on, Sean. Greipel very much blaming Chavanel for taking him out of yesterday in the run into Saint-Étienne. But you've got to ride your luck, and you can't bear grudges for too long in this game, surely.
No, I don't think it will be the case. It's just on the moment Greipel wasn't happy at all, and it's normal, because an opportunity missed for Greipel yesterday in that sprint. I think if he got a good position, he probably would have given it a good run, possibly got a stage victory. So he wasn't happy with Chavanel, and I think Chavanel also, he in the paper this morning I was reading, yes, there was a lot of pushing for position, and it got a bit tight, and he was kind of accepting that he made a little bit of mistake, but he said, yes, when you're in that situation, the very final, you have to push, and you cannot back off. We all have interests up there, and there's only room for so many riders, and down he went. So he was kind of admitting that yeah, he made a bit of mistake, but it's not the first time, it's not the last time it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Let's hope they stay safe today. It's unfamiliar terrain to many riders here. You may well have looked at the map today and thought, where? The Palaquite. Well, it used to be the Col de Guise de Quay, which has been used previously on the Tour de France, but they renamed it 3 years ago. Thank you very much for your thoughts on Twitter. If you'd like to join the conversation, it's at Carlton Kirby. If you hashtag Eurosport Cycling, or indeed Home of Cycling, why don't you check out the Eurosport website as well, eurosport.com or indeed.co.uk, and you will find various competitions as well, which we have running during this Tour de France. I believe you can win a rather chic Bianchi bike as well, so it's worth a look. Yes. Patrick Hawley is here, as well as Archie White, Peter Briggs, Percy Varco, Café Roubaix. Plenty of you really worried about the riders suffering in this heat. Well, likewise, we join you in that regard. Percy Varco asking a question which many of you have asked. How much do these guys get paid? Well, it varies tremendously, from millions to nowhere near. But yeah, there's no real benchmark, I'm afraid. It just depends on the greatness of your achievements. The Massif de la Chartreuse. We're not talking about a quadruple shot at the bar, John.
No, absolutely not. We're talking about this range of mountains, of which Chamrousse forms part of it, and they have a little bit of skiing up here in the winter months, and as you can see, beautiful limestone, I believe, still formations which dominate the landscape here. Lovely to go hiking on, perhaps not so pleasant to go cycling up when the temperature is as high as it is today.
Incidentally, limestone is silt of little dead bodies over millennia, sea creatures, laid down horizontally, of course. And when you see this strata lying at an angle like that, you appreciate just what the Earth's tectonic plates do to push what was laid down millennia ago to an angle such as that. You realise that there's a lot of action going on deep below the Earth, and there's quite a bit of it going on the surface as well, as you can see. And this is a good old push by Demarchi. Plenty of the breakaway just couldn't sustain it today, Sean. I just wonder whether they were sacrificial lambs, really, for their teams, or whether they do hold individual ambitions on a day that really is going to rely, surely, heavily on teamwork.
Well, I think they were the men that were hoping to be in the breakaway, the successful one of the day, and you know, the teams were thinking the same. But unfortunately, the mountain classification, Katusha weren't happy with the situation. Yeah, we can see why, because Demarchi is very much up there in the mountain classification, and you know, he's going to start moving up. He had 18 points, so he's going to take 10 over this one. It will be interesting to see, will Rodriguez try and do something in the final bit of the climb. I'm surprised he hasn't, you know, made a move already, because there's just riders hanging out in front there, and Rodriguez, you know, could get some points, but he seems to be happy enough just to follow the pace being set by some of the other teams on the front of the peloton of favourites.
I don't think he's got a chance, really. It may well be that his team, Katusha, did so much of the riding on, just burn themselves a little bit today and realise that they've got such a task at hand. Maybe leave it to another day and hope that Rodriguez makes it into the break. We speculate, of course. I guess we'll find out later on today when we have a chat with them. Le Monde on Tour is your touchstone for the inside line, top and tail of the day, each side of the live. Polka dots aplenty. Florent, hello maman. Anybody's guess. 46.6 kilometres to go. They've been out with the spray paint, and we're just getting into the fan zone, Sean, and the first big sort of camper van park, I think you might say. They get a lot of criticism, some of the fans, for arriving with all of their foodstuffs on board these vans. The French Tourist Authority not overly keen, because they don't spend much. They just arrive with everything they want and leave when it's finished. Good to see them here, though, Sean, and there's a little bit more space at this altitude, but on the final climb it gets very busy towards the top.
Yes, well, it is getting busy here, as we can see, and as we get onto the final climb of the day, it's more busy again. Yes, the camping cars, fringe prices must be too high. they have to drop their prices a bit. They'll not be coming with their full camper cars if they're competitive enough in the supermarket.
Yes, a rather acerbic comment from a supermarket person once. He said, they even bring their own bacon. Well, little bits of lardon generally tend to fall out the side of your sandwich, so I've got a bit of sympathy with that. DeMarchi, no sympathy for him at all. He's doing what he wants to do, and right now he wants to take this summit, and he's going to get plenty of points therein, Sean. This is a little battle for polka dots we're seeing at the moment. I don't think they've got a chance of going on for individual glory on a day like this.
Well, he is holding on quite well. 240 at the moment on the yellow jersey, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as we get to the summit of this one and the main peloton of riders, will they really push on the descent? The valleys are going to be the difficult one for a rider, because we have that almost 10 kilometres really, and then as we come to the final climb here to the Chamrousse, it is up the valley a lot, and that's individual effort is going to pay the price, and I think the advantage is too slim at 240. You need about 7-8 minutes at the moment for a rider to be in a position where they could hold on and try and go for stage victory.
Sure, it's the first day we've got of proper climbing. How do you, well, do you pace yourself, or do you just take your opportunities basically where they possibly present them? I guess the latter. You have to have a constant rolling plan of action, really, backup plans, and maybe just be prepared to shred them, be adaptable.
Well, I think the plan is, if you're in the general classification, not leader, of course, you just follow the other big favourites, and there's not a lot of planning in that. You just stay in a position in the earlier part of the race, as it was very fast before we got to this first serious climb, the first category climb of the day, and then on the climb itself, be in a position where you can correct the situation. If there's somebody going in the attack and there's some of the favourites going with them, you have to be there in the top 15-20 riders, and we see there the way the main peloton have settled down. They're just riding at an easy pace at the moment.
DeMarchi crests it, and what a relief that will be for him. Takes a gel belt almost immediately. Shows you just how busy he was. Didn't want to take their hands off the bars at all. Bakerland's a minute and 41 down. That's not a bad margin that he's going to have to carry into the next climb. And in fact, don't forget, he'll be coming down and into the intermediate sprint as well. They'll hit the flatlands. He's into the sprint with, I'll double check it for you right now. It'll be with 28 kilometres to go. And it's free energy, as we've constantly saying, if you're a decent descender, to get to that point, essentially. So he's done part of the job today. He's got a lot more to do ahead of him, and so have these guys. It's getting very select behind Sean, and the big names are here.
Yes, as we've been here, and the big names are here, and we can see the ones that were in difficulty earlier on are getting back in there, and number 74, Kwiatkowski.
Bike change, Sean.
Yes. 70. Backlands?
Yep.
Yes. Well, the reason, I'm not sure why he's changing a bike here, but again, we can see Barklands. He is in no man's land as well, and that's the problem for the breakaway. All on their own out here, but back in the main peloton, everybody there, and we can see the man was in difficulty. Kwiatkowski, the only general classification men we have heard that was in difficulty in the earlier part of this climb. He's after getting through quite well, and seemed to be just at the very tail end of the peloton of favourites.
Bike change is not unusual. It's a whole different set of gearing. I'm not sure that the second climb today is that much different. It certainly looks pacier. The real punishment has come in this one in terms of incline, but it's the length of the next one, Sean, and there's no downhill respite within it.
No, I think the length of it is going to be very important. If they race, and if they start racing in the earlier part of the final climb of the day, well, then it can get difficult. As we can see, Kwiatkowski is a bit further off. I thought he was making it the last pictures we have there, but he's a bit off. Where exactly, we haven't got a time check on him, but the final climb of the day, it's all about, you know, how much energy they have left. But will they start attacking each other? And if not, well, then there'll be, you know, no major upsets.
Looking fresh as a daisy, Perito coming through, I think, for the last point along the way. Grabs a bottle, and it's been a good push by his team, Katusha. It almost looked like they gifted him that. So he'll go through and down and maybe be a feature late on. Still to come. They're fighting for bottles here, Sean. There's a lot of thirst out there. I'm not surprised.
Yes, well, of course, when you're in the peloton, you know, the opportunity to get bottles is not great. As we can see, Matej here, just a bit too much pace on, leaving it run on as long as possible, leaving it go as far as possible and correcting it quite well. But yeah, a lot of thirst, and not surprising there, because this climb has been, you know, very, very warm one in the beginning, and everybody suffering from hydration is going to be so important today.
Very much so. You've got to keep that very much to the fore, and the feeds are being allowed a bit of freedom today, because they basically need these guys not to lose out to just a little bit of silliness, just not taking on fluids and indeed energy properly. Bakelants trails this man Demarchi by 1 minute and 21, and as you can see, it's about 13 seconds back to Matej. They and friends. We have Nibali, Rodriguez, Bardet, main principal men, and of course they have Horner and others around them, looking nice and fresh. Chris Horner just constantly baffles me about his ability to carry the age he has so well up a mountain. He's on good form. He's back from injury, don't forget, so I guess he's had a bit of respite, at least to the top of this year. It looked like being a bad choice by Lamprey, but he's come good.
Yes, well, he's looking in the last days, he's starting to appear more on our screen, and that is a sign that the rider is getting into better shape. We'll see him very much on the front of the peloton there, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the next mountain stages.
To third place, the man we're looking at here, Alessandro Demarchi, with 28. Tony Martin is fourth, and down to fifth is Vincenzo Nibali. Back with Bakelants. His gap is around about 1 minute, but only about 10 or 15 seconds behind him is the Cofidis rider. This rider here, Luis Angel Matej. Well, they're saying 150, although Race Radio said it was a lot closer than that. Having a look in this group to see, there is the white jersey with the yellow helmet, and that is Romain Bardet, the youngster from France. He has a huge career ahead of him. He's just on the push to talk button there, talking back to the team car behind. And Bardet, for many people, feel that he's got a very good chance of doing something today. Up the climb there, Demarchi was the fastest rider. He rode a minute faster than Jan Bakelants and 1 minute 30 faster than the main field.
Which is auguring well for the last climb of the day if he keeps on making progress, because descending behind him, the boys are not getting much closer. It's still being shown as 1 minute and 4 seconds, Bakelants, and then just approximately 38 seconds back to Matej. Pinot is still on his own at 2:40, and then comes the group at 2 minutes and 53.
Well, just looking now, keep looking to try and ascertain how many riders from Team Astana are in this group. But the slow descent that these guys are adopting right now could give a chance for some of Vincenzo Nibali's riders to come back into this group to help him over the next few kilometers.
Fulsang is down, front wheels gone from underneath him. He's a big lieutenant when it comes to Vincenzo Nibali in the climb today, and he's taken a hit. There we are. At least he's up and nothing's broken clearly, but he's got road rash, particularly on that left-hand shoulder, and this is how easy it can be. No apparent reason for that whatsoever. And away he goes. Now, we had some tar sweat on the roads on particularly brighter sections, but it doesn't appear that that's the case here. Maybe he just very unluckily caught a bit of overbanding or maybe a bit of fluid, but he's in no hurry to get back on at the moment, and this is bad news for Vincenzo Nibali. Fuglsang, one of the big driving forces when it comes to chasing on. Likewise, Scarponi, who had a tumble the other day, don't forget, when he looked rather ruefully and started shaking his head like, but why are you getting in my way? Nibali so far has had some amazing luck, and that's the level of concern he's got right now. He knows that that's a big man down at the moment. And I'm wondering if we're going to get to see it from their heads-up position here right now, and that's exactly what we've got, the reverse view on the motorcycle camera. It's a nightmare out there. You can get caught out at any time. Well, today we believe that the road surface was reasonably favourable and in good condition. And, well, there's a whole load of hurt. And that's going to be a bad night's sleep, I'm afraid, for Jakob Fuglsang. And he's busy just dousing himself and just taking some of the sting out of it, I guess. Well, there we are. Perfect example of the vectors that you get here is the hot air. And we've got plenty of that today. Don't be unkind. 40 Celsius in the valleys. A little bit cooler at the top. And with hot air rising, if you just hug the terrain and you happen to be a paraglider, you're going to be up there all day if you want. Great excuse. I just couldn't come down, love. 34.6 kilometers to go. Just under 3 minutes is the gap that this man has on the peloton, which I guess is probably waiting a bit, because Astana are not going to be pushing on. This man certainly is, and he's having his fun out here. Bekelants, incidentally, is 57 seconds back on Damarki. I can tell you that Kwiatkowski was nearly 30 seconds down on the main bunch, and is getting back on in the descent because the peloton has just eased off a bit. So wouldn't be surprised to see that gap just expanding, and as we say it does, to over the 3 minute mark. That's courtesy of the weight on that's being induced here. They're waiting on for Fuglsang, at least Astana are not pushing on, let's put it that way. 33.6 kilometers to go, and he's threading a beautiful line through the road here. Just glancing at the surface, it looks like plenty of cable and piping has been laid in this part of the world. We've got overbanding of plenty, so different surfaces, and indeed different fillers having been used on the surface. It doesn't give for a comfortable ride. And if you watch, the big tell, by the way, as to how smooth the road surface is elbows. Just watch how they're basically the shock absorbers when you're coming downhill like this. And if you look at elbow chatter, shall we say, then you're going to get a view of just how much they're putting into this. Into tranche, and it'll be a slice of hurt he's going to pick up in a moment. You'll forgive me for that one day. 28 kilometers from home, he's going to be into the sprint, the intermediate sprint, and he's just coming off this descent now. He's going to hit a flat section, and then he's going to roll through the sprint and be greedy with those points. He'll then start climbing almost immediately afterwards before he hits a plateau, a very short one of a couple of kilometers, and then he'll be into the last real climb of the day. And the first rude one, it's all category. Chamrousse it is, and it's long and arduous. 18.2 kilometers, but really, to my mind, it's 28 kilometers long, albeit with sub-climbs within it. But hey, I didn't write the road book. These guys are writing their own little chapters at the moment, and they're doing an amazing job. 3 minutes holding station right now while they wait on for Fuglsang. Well, it's a difficult time if you're not the best descender, and to be honest, you're looking at Mardones at the moment, and he's not the best. Iams Pinot has come out, maybe going up the road in an effort to be a bridge for Reichenbach. I haven't seen Reichenbach actually, just for the time being. I'll check in a moment whether he's in the main bunch, but I almost daren't take my eyes off the action at the moment. Sean Kelly, incidentally, if you're wondering where he's gone, has nipped off for a coffee. John, while we're on this descent and everything's staying safe and we haven't had an ow moment, I think it might be opportune for us to have our poem. Should we slip one in?
Let's slip one in. Samuel Rogers, The Alps at Daybreak. The sunbeams streak the azure skies and line with light the mountain's brow. With hounds and horns the hunters rise and chase the roebuck through the snow. From rock to rock with giant bound, high on their iron poles they pass, mute lest the air convulsed by sound rend from above a frozen mass. The goats wind slow their wonted way up craggy steeps and ridges rude, marked by the wild wolf for his prey from desert cave of hanging wood. And while the torrent thunders loud, and as the echoing cliffs reply, the huts peep o'er the morning cloud, perched like an eagle's nest on high.
Nicely done, John. And at a pace we appreciate. Yes, not much time today. So we just thought we'd squeeze it in. The usual sort of ambling stanzas that John provides for us have proved extremely popular. So maybe if you've taped it, how old school is that? You might be able to slow it down a bit. But lovely nonetheless, and we have more alpine words tomorrow, courtesy of the fact that we're in the Alps. This is that flat section right now, and thanks for all of your kind comments today. A lot of positivity about the poems as well. I know a lot of you very much getting into it. It seems to become much a feature of this year's tour, and it's thanks to John and his beautiful delivery. Another career there for you, John. Almost careered into a bit of street furniture, and it looks like he wouldn't have been the first either. A big hunk out of the concrete, and sizable gentleman as well, just doing his stuff right now. 3 minutes and 16 he's got on the main peloton, and as you can see, you were thinking ice during John's little stanzas, and yes, Mont Blanc still very much the White Mountain, as you can see, even in the summertime. There is a bit of glacier to play with up there. In fact, our beloved Magnus Backstedt was once thought about a career as a speed skier, would you believe? But yes, decided to stick with cycling. Jolly good too, Mr. Paris-Roubaix. 29.6 kilometres, and there we are. It's a 3 minutes and 23 gap, and for now there's been a bit of a knocking back, as you can see. Now this could well just play into the hands of the individual minded to go long. Now Demarchi is pretty handy. He was king of the mountains, don't forget, in the Dauphiné, but he beat Froome up to Risoul in the Dauphiné last year. That was the Dauphiné that Froome won before he won the Tour de France. So he had the beating of Chris Froome, ultimately Tour de France champion, on a tough day. In fact, if you look at the profile into Risoul, it's very much like the terrain we're dealing with right now. And I think Demarchi, well, did exactly that with his highlight pen. He put a mark around this one and said, this day could be mine. I might have to do quite a bit of work myself, and clearly that's exactly what's happening right now. Sure, he's been in this kind of situation before. He's made it count. He had the beating of Froome on the Dauphiné into Risoul in 2013, and he's out front at the moment, and the peloton have eased. This is playing into his hands.
Yes, what he will need a lot of things to play into his hand, because this is going to be a difficult climb for him, being out there for so long. As we can see here, there's attacks starting to come in the valley, and if that does continue, well, then this advantage will go only one way, and that's down, unfortunately. But Demarchi, he is a huge talent. He's done some great performance. I think in the Dauphiné he won the mountain classification, so he is in good shape, and I think the last number of days have showed the way he's been riding. He's in excellent form, but I'm afraid it's not going to be enough for him.
Well, here we go. Thankfully, these hands now are foam. Can you remember, Sean, who it was that had a terrible injury when he got the worst card cut you could possibly imagine?
Hushovd.
There you go. Sliced into the bicep. Oh, don't look for those pictures. They were handing out card hands on the Giro d'Italia, and we told them the story, and they packed it in. Thank goodness. You see, we do look after everybody when we can. We're going to look after ourselves now that Sean's arrived back with the coffees. Somebody's saying it's a euphemism for a natural break. No, it's not. We just rolled through the intermediate sprint, the pack in no hurry at all. I think they're saving a little bit of energy. Is it playing into the hands of Demarchi up the road? Bakerlance is on his case. His team pulled alongside during the break and had a rare old chat with him, saying, well, we're basically berating him and saying, come on, you've got to put in an awful lot of effort if you want to get up to Demarchi, and if you do, then you're going to have the beating of him. Well, we've just seen Francis de Jeux come to the fore. They are going to work for Thibaut Pinot today. We know that. It was part of the battle plan. But 3 minutes and 38. Don't think it's enough, Sean, with the climb that we have as we dwell on these beautiful outcrops of rock. You've got to be rock hard today if you're going to take that extra step. And actually, it's more than a step, isn't it? It is quite literally a mountain to climb.
Yes, it is a big one and a long one, and with conditions and the way they have been racing very fast all day, it's going to really be a big demand for Demarchi to hold on out there. Although he's advantage 3:34, it sounds big when you look at 25 kilometres to go. Unfortunately, you know, with Bakerlance chasing, if the two were together, they could share this pacing. You would conserve and, you know, hold a bit of energy for the final climb. You know, this is a real killer here on your own, and then when you get into the final 18 kilometres, it's, you know, it's going to hit you. How soon will it hit Demarchi? That is the question. He'll have to be super strong if he's going to hold on out here. But you know, he's working very well at the moment, and it will also depend on what happened back in the what's left of the peloton. We can see FDJ are starting to, you know, push on the pace here, and if that does happen with a number of teams, well, then his advantage will just come down before he can even get to the climb.
Fort de Saint-Étienne, I understand it was actually used for a sort of a one of those virtual reality TV shows, incidentally, at one time. We'll pick up perhaps on that on another day. Right now, these guys are in a whole world of hurt. They're going to get a bit of respite, Sean, and it's going to come with about 20 kilometres to go. So they're just coming up to that point right now. The actual climb itself is detailed at 18. So they've got 2 Ks or 2.5 Ks of reasonable flat before they actually get into it. This deep into a long day, despite the 2 climbs, 197.5 kilometres, just 2.5 shy of the 200 mark. In this temperature, with these climbs and that distance, you need an awful lot more than just 2 of you up the road. And so even if Bakerlance joins Demarchi, I think it's going to be a very tall order if they're going to deliver a victory today.
Yes, well, look at the peloton at the moment. We see Francis de Jeux, they have put 3 riders on the front, as we can see here, and they are going to, you know, I think cause difficulty for Demarchi to hold on to that nice advantage he has got, just under 3.5 minutes, and unless you know, there's a real downtime in the earlier part of the climb where Demarchi can, you know, get up the climb and hold on to his advantage, it looks like it's going to be a difficult one. But you never know. Demarchi, you know, he has done some splendid performance in the past. Is he out there today and on one of these super days where he's going to, you know, be very strong in the end?
I think Valverde would have liked it even hotter than today. The sky possibly a little cooler, but you've got no choice in the matter. You just have to deal with what you've been offered. Likewise, where you find yourself coming into the mountains. Sean, do you think anyone's going to take a big step forward today? Do you think it's a possibility that someone like Pierre Rolland might just start bursting into the top 10? He's a couple of minutes away from that marker at the moment. He finds himself, what, nearly 7 minutes down Rolland, just ahead of Chris Horner, who likewise looks like he's feeling lively.
Yes, well, I think it's going to be difficult on the final climb to see guys taking the big advantage. A guy like Pierre Rolland or Horner, Tendam, those guys who are, you know, a long ways down, they could go on the attack and take that 20 30 seconds out of the peloton. If there's no action in the peloton, you know, that's about the maximum they can do. So they're not going to, you know, move up big time in general classification. So it's the real battle will, if they see some of the more danger men like a TJ Van Garderen and Perrault, Bardet, if some of those go into the attack, well then the other ones, all the ones in the top of the general classification, will have to react immediately, and that's when we would see the action coming from.
Gordash just moving himself into position, right hand side of the road, left hand side of screen. Movistar lurking.
Vichot, former champion of France, so the French down to 43 contenders now.
Well, I suppose it was a bit remiss of us there, Phil, as we went through Grenoble, to not mention the fact that Gini Longo is from Grenoble, 59 times champion of France. Bacalance at 44 seconds. The main field at 3 minutes 16 from this lone leader here. He's about 5 kilometers now away from the start of the climb proper. And he's just going up the rather nasty little false flat. He's left the sprint point behind him at Saint-Martin-de-Air. And now this long undulation leads to a banner which will indicate to him 18.5 kilometers to the finish line, and of course at the summit of the final climb of the day. He keeps pouring water all over him. That's to just to waken him up a little bit, because in this kind of a heat and with this kind of effort, sometimes you start to fall asleep a little bit in your concentration. You lose the concentration you need to keep the pain right up there. As you can see, he's got his heart rate monitor on his bike just towards the front there. He'll be looking at his wattage, looking at his heart rate. Heart rate at a ride like this is probably hovering at around about 165 for this man. This man is locked in, Jan Bacalance, at 42 seconds. He just cannot close down those 42 seconds. The two riders in first and second place overall are currently riding at the same speed. I do think that we will see a big acceleration coming once we start to line up for this last climb of the day. An interesting climb as well, though, once we get into it, because we come through the small town of Uriage-les-Bains, which used to be a spa resort, and then we line up to 18.2 kilometers, climbing up to 1,700 meters, which is about 5,500 feet. There's Jürgen van den Broek just over to the left-hand side. He was involved in a little crash earlier on today as well, although he seems to be quite comfortable. That's Valverde we're looking into the eyes of. It looks now as if Alessandro De Marchi has reached his, reached his limit here, and he's having to concentrate very, very hard on keeping his tempo nice and high. He knows what is on the horizon. He's no stranger to these roads around the Alps. He won the King of the Mountains competition in that Criterium du Dauphiné, and that was in the month of June. That's the first indication of which riders have got form leading up to the Tour de France, and it was probably that performance there that earned him his slot in this year's Tour de France team.
Nibali.
22 kilometers to go. Looks nice and easy at the moment. You wouldn't believe he's halfway up an Alp, but he is. He's got a gap at the moment of 38 seconds over the chasing Bacalance. During the break, his team came up and harangued him. Get up the road, they said. Get with De Marchi and start doing your bidding for glory. I think it may have been a little bit optimistic, especially as the quality of the chasing group. As British have only just joined us, we were engaged in conversation about the fall of Fuglsang and indeed the auto reaction of Nibali, who looked back very, very concerned. He is a great ally to have on these sort of climbs, Sean. It looked like road rash mainly. There's been no reports of serious injury to him, but he may well have to live to help another day.
Yes, well, back on his bike, which is a good thing. Hopefully the injury is not too bad, because, you know, for Astana and the yellow jersey Nibali, he's an important man. He's an important cog of the wheel, and hopefully that there's no long long-term injury where, you know, the next number of days, just a bit of road rash, he can get over that quite quickly. And as we see, it was one of these crashes where just, you know, a little bit too much on, went too much to the side, and then just started to slide off in the gravel, I believe. I didn't see actually the pictures because I was out getting our double espressos for the final climb of the day.
Yeah, we need the pep. There we are. What a lovely little gaff, as they say. This man, at the moment, what will he land today? We'll see. Could be a big one, but I think his card is potentially marked. And look at this, Sean. This is the sprint point that the main contenders passed through quite some time ago, and it looks like holiday time back here.
Well, we can see Bernie Eisel there leading through. Not sure what group that is. Is that the final group on the road, or you know, I think there's a few groups.
There is.
There's a few groups out there. So which one exactly it is? But yeah, 14 minutes is not a problem, because when you look at the stage today, where they have to get. The time delay is not going to be a problem, and it doesn't look like they're bothered about it.
No, they certainly didn't. It looked like they were on school holiday, as it were. The naughty boys of the class had done their thing early on and have been excluded. Still in the race, incidentally. Saint-Étienne. Well, while we've got a little hiatus, anything to tell us about this glorious little place with wide parklands and some very chic villas, I might add? Is it a spa town, John?
It is a spa resort. Very good. It has a casino, a tramway. It has sulfurated and chlorinated water, and it's also very famous because it was here that there was a school set up by the Vichy government during the Second World War, a school which has since been taken out of commission.
Quietly disbanded.
Yes, quietly disbanded. I was trying to find a polite way of saying that, and you stepped in
just
at
like
exactly the right
government.
moment. Yes, less quietly disbanded, but disbanded all the same.
Well, at least put to one side, I think. 20 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 52. Less said about that, the better. And as you can see, the melt water still keeping the ground a little bit soggy in this part of the world. It's amazing still to see snow in the environs to which we are heading. They're still in a warmer part of the day right now, but they're about to get into this climb. And Sean is listed as 18 kilometres, and it's our leader that's going to hit it first. It's being chased down by Bekelants. It's not really the sort of peak you can take on your own if the chasers are minded to do their job.
Well, it's not a climb where you can take on too early on your own, because you're going to pay the price. 18 kilometres, it's a long ways, and of course it's, you know, very wide road, very good surface. So you know, there's going to be a little bit, if you're in the drafting of a rider, there's going to be a little bit of advantage there. So mentally, the rider's not going to ride in the front. The general classification meant they're going to be hoping to have teammates with them, and it's going to be interesting one who is going to, you know, put their teammates on the front. FDJ, Française de Gilles, they have committed, and you know, they have been riding for quite a while, and it looks like, yes, with the man they have got up at the general classification, they feel that maybe he can do something. Pinot Thibault, it'll be, you know, can he do something at this stage? What will he do in the earlier parts, because the teammates will peel off very quickly.
Gassy, stinky, warm, sulphurous water. And somebody thought, we've got a business here. They made a good job of it. Doing the business out front, it is Demarchi with Bekelants 41 seconds behind. 2 minutes and 41 further adrift, so the gap really is starting to close. And it's yeah, we're just slightly ahead of the graphic here by the looks of things in the transponders. In fact, it's going the other way. We're on the climb, and it really is that time of day right now where you can bid for glory. Indeed, you can ride it in, as you've seen some of the gruppettos doing exactly that. We've got groups all over the place, but significantly, Sean, just 2 minutes and 38 down on our leading men, we have the main contenders, and this is their battleground, the first of them of this year's tour, really, when it comes to the high mountains.
Yes, and we can see still Française de Joux setting a pace, but a bit more of an urgency here. They're really pushing on at a strong pace, and we have maybe 50 riders in this main group, and onto this final climb of the day, the very important one. It's the longest climb we've had by far in this race, and 18 kilometers, and the mountaintop finishes are always an interesting one, and if anybody is off the pace of the other big favourites, well, you're going to get caught out on this one.
I think so. It's the first real test, and I guess how much strength you've carried out of what has been a very, very punishing 12 days of racing, albeit we're only 2 days back in the saddle, or third day, I should say, back in the saddle, after the rest day. Some will get found out today, Sean, and some are actually going to produce a fantastic performance and maybe get themselves back into contention, and that's what I love about this point of the race.
Well, that is the big question now. What is going to happen on the final climb between the big favourites? Will they be a battle in the earlier part, or will they just ride up, use their teammates to continue setting a pace with the advantage with 2:27 for our leader on the Road de Marquis. Française de Joux has committed, so they have to really try and close this one down, get a bit closer, although a rider who coming out of the peloton, he could close that gap down. And the interesting one is, will Française de Joux have the manpower to continue, or will Pinot Thibault go in the attack and try and go across this gap on his own? It will all depend on how well the team can continue riding. As we can see, Movistar starting to up the pace here.
Thibaut Pinot is a big threat. Movistar, I think, are a team that frankly can go long. They've got manpower aplenty. They have bode their time rather well. It's a question possibly of who's going to keep up with them today. Nibali has lost a wingman as far as the climb is concerned today, and in fact I guess the shell-out rate as far as his team is concerned is going to start to loom large. Lew Westra is one of those. Fuglsang's taken a tumble. They did a lot of early work, Sean. Did they do too much too early? Still got one man with him.
Well, I think they were concerned about the advantage of their sole leader out the front, and we should be interested. And I think Thibaut Pinot, he's still in here, but the other teammates of him have disappeared here. We can hear Kwiatkowski is getting into difficulty already, which is not surprising because he was in the earlier climb in difficulty. And as we can see, Movistar are the ones which are more in the action at the moment.
There is the white young rider's jersey. You can see his two AG2R Le Mondial teammates just in front of him, also with yellow numbers. They are leading the team's classification at the moment, and Rodriguez is looming on the right-hand side of the road, so left-hand side. As you look at it, you'll keep seeing the polka dot jersey of the Spaniard. His team, Katusha, did a lot of pacing early on to get him into this position, and indeed hold that break. It's now under the 2-minute mark. Geraint Thomas is doing a good job, and he's taken a knapsack and he's taking a late feed here, and it's all perfectly in order. They're allowing energy to be delivered to the riders as well as bottles, as temperatures have been over 40 Celsius today. A little bit cooler as they get deeper into the afternoon, and indeed higher up this mount, but it's not that much of a temperature difference just now. It will alter gently, I suppose, but gentle is something you can't say about today. It was always going to hurt. These last 16 or so kilometers that they've got, go away with your spraying water, I'll do it myself, was the sign, I think, just coming out of, was it Janison who's suffering at the back there? Plenty will today, plenty more of this hurt to come, and Arashira's done a fantastic job for Europcar. He certainly working hard, and it's Pierre Roland who's been the main beneficiary, and he's within this group as well, the Europcar rider in his green, you will see that. But it's Movistar and it's Valverde we're thinking about, and they're not afraid to take this on, Sean.
No, we can see here that it's Cadre who's taking it up at the moment, and that is causing a lot of problems. We can hear riders, and seeing riders there just losing contact very early on this climb, because still 16.5 kilometers to go. Movistar are causing big damage here for some of the riders, but the big favourites, except for Kwiatkowski, they all seems to be hanging in there for the moment.
Yes, I think we might well be catching up with Kwiatkowski. There he is, number 74. He's got Michael Golash, who's come to help out. He's dropped back a little bit, not that far off the main group he was, but now is back down the mountain. He's lost 3 minutes in very short order, Sean.
Yes, I think it's going to be a difficult one for him. General classification, it looks like it's going to go totally out of his reach. Any place in the top 10, I think he's going to lose so much time today, it seems to be over.
How different then for Romain Bardet, who took that young rider's jersey off him. You see him bouncing there into your vision. He's on the left-hand side. And Rodriguez said, no, thank you very much. Not today.
Well, I don't think he's able to do anything about it. This pace being set by Movistar is going to a lot of riders are going to pay if they can't continue on, and that is the problem with the distance you have to go to the finish. When you put your team on the front on a nearly part of a long climb, and then you find yourself without any teammates left, it's going to be a difficult one for Valverde, because it is certainly going to be too far out for him to go in the attack. You know, 10-12k out, that is by far too far. You need more teammates just to make a very fast pace and try and eliminate or try and put the other favourites under difficulty.
16 kilometres to go. It's 1 minute and 20 is the gap back to the yellow jersey group. It's about 17 seconds is all that Bakelants has got on these guys, and right now it's Movistar that are not afraid to just take this on, and they're doing a fantastic job. Valverde looking comfortable. Richie Porte, you know, he has what it takes in situations such as this. He comes from Tasmania, a little bit more temperate, so doesn't overly like hot temperatures. But Sean, he's known as not being terribly explosive, but amazingly effective when he just maintains a pace which is punishing others. Just seeing Bakelants get taken back in, which leaves one man up the road right now, Demarchi, ahead of the main names. Can Richie Porte impose himself today, or do you think he's just going to be marked out of this as nearest man to Nibali, albeit 2 minutes and 23 down?
Well, I think if Richie Porte feels that Nibali may be suffering a bit and he's feeling good himself, well then I'd not be surprised if he goes and puts in an attack. But Nibali will have to, you know, be close and mark Porte immediately. It's all about how you feel as well, and you know, if Richie Porte just feels that it's not the day for him, well, he's just going to follow and try and get this first day in the Alps over it.
Pick up a pace as the Soigneur picked up the bottle and delivered it smartly to Bakelants, who was berating him, as you saw. A little bit further back as well, riders just getting themselves into a bit of trouble. You saw Geraint Thomas has been doing great work for Richie Porte to getting him into a decent position, and Nicholas Roach as well, as also looks like he's pretty spent today. I'm not surprised. The temperatures won't suit everybody, in fact suit very few. The only man who's declared himself as absolutely loving it when it's around the 40s is Valverde, and it's he with his teammate in front of him that is here right now, and in fact Vincenzo Nibali right there, and even the great Tommy Voeckler. He's not going to have a face-pulling day today. He's just going to roll with the crowds, and he's acknowledging them right now. And what did I say about face-pulling? At least he's proving me wrong in that regard. There we are. He'll just bounce his way over today, but it's not a Voeckler day, Sean. It's about these guys.
No, well, in the situation coming to the final climb with the group of big favourites for Voeckler, it's not what he would really be happy with. He'd like to be in a breakaway, and that's the way he has got all his results, going in a breakaway earlier on, getting a big advantage, and then he can, you know, hold on to that advantage very well.
Michael Rogers just rolling on with Rafa Majka, I think it is, from Tinkoff Saxo. Yes, it is. Rui Costa's also in that this grouping, the world champion. Out front, Demarchi still holding on here. It's under a minute though, and with 15.1 kilometres remaining. Let's talk about what is at hand here, Sean. He's just about to come into one of the steeper sections, unfortunately for him.
Yes, there is sections where it does get a little bit steeper, and you know, it kicks up to that 11%, and you know, it goes out again to 5% and then back to 7%. You don't really see it when you come up here because the road is so big. Yeah, good surface, but when you're after being through what these guys have been through today and the previous days, you will feel that difference and that up in percentage, up in gradient. And if they really, you know, start attacking each other on the steeper gradient, this group will start, you know, to shed as well. They'll lose a lot more riders.
He's just about to hit a reasonable ramp in a moment, between 3 and 6% listed. I suggest it's nearer 6%. However, it'll feel like flat compared to what he's going to face. There is Pierre Roland. We just hoved alongside him. He's staying on at the moment, Roland. So is this man out front. 41 seconds though. He's got to grind into this climb. When it says, he's got another 1.7 dealt with, so when the ticker at the top left says 13 to go, that's when he's going to be in a whole different world, unfortunately. It's the most difficult section of this long climb, Sean, and we're talking 11, 12, sometimes 13%, extending over 2 kilometres. That's where he's going to get caught.
Well, if it continues on at the pace which Gadret, but it looks like Gadret has peeled off. Yes, it's a finish for John Gadret here from the Movistar team. So now it's going to be a question, will they be attacks or will they just start looking at each other on the front of the group? And if they do that, well, then the pace will drop a little bit. But for Demarchi, 37 seconds still with just 14.5 kilometers to go. You know, it's not going to be at all sufficient for him to have any chance of holding on. And it depends on what way they, they ride here in this front of this group, and we can see it's Stan who was securing the pace here, and they've got to do that because if it slows down too much, well, then you guarantee that there will be some riders who will go in the attack.
Portniev here for Sky. There is Pierre Roland, nearest man to us, as you can see. Micah and Frank Schleck. A couple of people saying what could Frank Schleck do on a day like today, and Booker Mollema as well. I haven't really mentioned him from Belkin in his familiar green and black. Sadly a livery that we're not going to see much more of by the end, and it looks like we're not going to see much more of this man either. This is not the hardest part of the climb at all. He's approaching it right now, and you don't take yourself a shower like that. He's not a happy camper at all, I'm afraid. He's put a lot of effort into today, Sean, and that's spent energy that he may have in deficit tomorrow, I'm afraid.
Well, I think it was a situation there, you know, where you had to continue on. Unfortunately, on his own, as I mentioned, it was going to be so difficult. If he had Bacalans with him, you know, for a big part of the time, well then, you know, they would share the pace setting on the front, and that does change a lot because you conserve a lot of energy for this final climb. But even so, I think with two of them there, it would be so hard to hold on. You can see the way the advantage is dropping, and Bacalans as well, because of the solo efforts they've made. I think they've paid the price a bit earlier, but still they would have come onto this climb with, you know, 5 minutes plus maybe to hold on, and we can see the way that, you know, the advantage. And Demarchi, you know, for the last, you know, couple of kilometers, it's only a matter of time before he's going to be pulled back in.
Yeah, when he took a shower, it was almost like the early bath. I think he's decided that this is just silliness now on his own. I imagine they'll sail on to him. He may struggle to stay with them, to be honest, because there's a lot of guys here who are extraordinarily capable in this kind of terrain. A few moments ago, we just went very close at hand to Bardet. Romain Bardet, the great French hope. There are other Frenchmen as well who might have a part of today. Thibaut Pinot of Francis Desjeux has been guided into position, but it really is getting very selected. It's for the first time, Sean, that we've seen so many of the big names concentrated in such a ball of talent.
Yes, I think the terrain just automatically shreds the weaker ones, the ones who are suffering, and now we have, you know, a very select group of leaders here.
Shock absorbers, fat tyres, disc brakes, and indeed a chairlift to do all the hard work, and then you just ride it down. Mountain biking. Going the other way, up the road with 13.6 kilometres to go. A whole world of torture for these guys. Just look at it. Sean, it feels hot just looking at the screen.
Yes, well, not surprising. It's just, you know, a real killer of a day there with that very, very high temperatures right from the early morning, from the start, and in the valley, in the lower slopes, of course, yeah, it was 37 degrees, which is it's cruel, really, you know, to have to ride a bike for a number of hours in that conditions. You know, 197.5 kilometers. It's only the fit to survive, and that's what we've got here. You know, we mentioned a moment ago a very select group, and who are the ones who are going to, you know, pay the price here? As we can see, Astana, Tanel Kanget setting the pace from Nibali, and everybody just happy to follow for the moment.
Very much so. Just look at the amount of number ones that you see in here. If the number ends in a 1, it's a team principal, and we've got a whole selection of them. Rui Costa's here, Van der Broek is here, Bokeh Mollema from Belkin. Some who started a little bit further down in terms of their team focus. I'm not suggesting that's Mr. Nibali, who we're looking at right now. Red hot favourite, of course, now since Alberto Contador and Chris Froome both injured out of this race, both with fractures. Froome to both hand and wrist, both sides, and indeed Alberto Contador, of course, with a broken shin bone. Here we are then. Lièvre, Port, Maika, Rogers, Nibali, Tanel Kanget, Demarquis here, Bokeh Mollema, Lawrence Tendam, who's always a great intrepid fighter, Perrault, of course, from AG2 Le Mondial, but Bardet in that white jersey, Rui Costa, Horner, Pinot. It's a roll of honour, this, Sean. Van der Broek, Van Garderen, TJ's in the house. So Stettiner, Pierre Roland can win it today. Oh, it's only if the others cast a glance at each other, perhaps. Frank Schleck's also in this group. It's an amazing sort out that we've had. It's almost we've griddled away the chaff, and here we are. They'll forgive me. We have the absolute gold card players at hand.
Yes, well, it is the elite is left here, and it's going to be interesting to who is the one is going to put in the attack. Still with 12.9 kilometers, it's a long way to the finish, and everybody are just allowing Astana with Tanel Kanget to secure the pace here and just follow for the moment. The question is, who will go in the attack? You know, how long will they leave it before they do that? And I think we'll probably get into the final 5k before somebody tries the attack. And it also depends, Astana with Kanget on the front, how long can he last? You know, he can maybe do 2 or 3 kilometers. If he does more than that, well, it will be a surprise at this pace.
Good to have a teammate with you. Stettiner is here for TJ Van Garderen. I think Nibali has got some strength which he can deliver. He better had. He's lost a couple of guys today. In fact, he's just, of course, as you know, just got the one teammate with him sitting in front right now. But it's a big loss. The likes of Fulsang, who would have been up here very late on. And there is Richie Port, and he looks like he's the first of the big names to start suffering here, Sean. He's taking a lot of water on board. Let's see if there's a gap. Just the elastic starting to stretch. That's Nieve, who's his helper, just in front of him. And the pace could be kicked up. The teams will be seeing this, and he's out of the saddle. Others are still sitting in, notably Nibali, who looks very comfortable in these kind of angles. He's out of the saddle, back in. He's losing rhythm here, Sean, as they pick up the tempo in front of him.
Yes, not looking good at all for Richie Port. Surprising that he's losing contact so early, and we can see now that Nibali's having a look about to see who is left here. He's probably been made aware via his earpiece that Richie Port is in difficulty, and of course, you know, he is the man in general classification. I think Nibali was a little bit concerned about him, you know, being so close, and if he was staying this close going to the final time trial, I think Nibali would be concerned. So it will be interesting now what Nibali can do, but still over 12 kilometers with Tanget, we've seen just a moment ago, still setting the pace on the front.
Wow, well, this is the sort of pace change, a gentle one, that Richie Port was expected to impose on everybody else. Well, do unto others as you would have them do to you, and believe me, that is exactly what's happening at the moment. They've just picked up the pace very gently. Nibali had a big look over his shoulder and said, come on, let's just start delivering some hurt. Let's tighten the screw, and that's precisely what's happened. And unfortunately, being choked out of this, there he is. Richie Port found out on the first real Alpine stage today there can be recovery, but this is crucial seconds now that he's losing. That's another 10 added on to the 2 minutes and 20 he found he was in arrears at the start of the day.
Yes, and it will be interesting to see, can he just limit the losses, and that's going to be, I think, the calculation for Port with his teammate Nieve. Nibali, I think, when he heard it in race radio, he had to pull over a bit and look around. I think he wasn't really believing it, and he just wanted to check with his own eyes to see that that was the case. And we can see, you know, Kangert is continuing as Thibaut Pinot puts in an attack.
Well, this is important as well. Pinot 5th, don't forget, overall, and Romain Bardet, a big question mark for him, I guess, as well. He's the young man that sits in front of him in the classification. Bardet starting the day 3 minutes and 1 down. Pinot 3 minutes and 47 adrift, running in 5th. But what he's doing at the moment is essentially just killing off this man, Richie Port. And of course, these guys thinking the long game. They don't mind imposing a bit of hurt on somebody else that's ahead of them. Maybe not the target, the leader today, but it's shifting those in front of you in the ranking, and they're all thinking about podium places these days, and maybe one day just getting their chance to have a go at Nibali himself. Pierre Rolland is the next name to start suffering. He can spin this up and get back on, but he's looking like he's in a world of hurt, and he's gotten pale, Sean, and that's not good.
No, when you see somebody getting into difficulty at this point, and the problem is it's just such a long way to the finish. 11.5 kilometers. You know, as we see the pace being upped a bit here by the Française de Jouman, and it's going to blow this group apart, as we can see here. Rui Costa, Horner starting to see gaps in front of them.
It's amazing. It's a line of talent that is going to be drawn out, and goodness me, look at this, they're weaving over the road now, and Valverde looks reasonably fresh, so does Nibali. And just looking for Bardet, likewise, he's here with his teammate Perrault. They've come through the hurt zone, Sean. They're out the other side of it just, and boy, did that hurt. They're going to come into an area of 6% before it kicks back up towards the 9s for most of the rest of the climb.
Yes, well, it does kick up again, but you know, it will all depend now what the pace will be, who's going to make the pace, and if they start putting in an attacks, well, that's where it gets very difficult. As we can see here, it's going to continue.
This is Koenig has decided to have some fun. He took a tumble, don't forget, and has tumbled down the order. He's way off classification-wise. There he is, 8 minutes and 25, and Pinot picks it up and tries to respond. Valverde goes with him, and so does Nibali in the yellow jersey. This has been started, essentially, by Koenig, who's just wants to get something out of this race. He's capable of delivering a victory, especially having the deficit he does, Sean. He might be allowed a bit of a leash, and he can ride this one in.
Yes.
Oh, but are they going to let him?
No, we can see it's Micah from Saxo Tinkoff who is starting to go after Koenig here, and the men who are a bit further down the general classification, they probably feel, well, this is the opportunity here. The big favourites are starting to mark each other, and they've seen that there's rivalry there, so opportunity, if you're that much off in the general classification, try and have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. And picking up now is Volker Mollema as well. He's got a teammate, Ten Dam, with him. Just trying to see actually whether it was Ten Dam, I beg your pardon, who's riding on. Good man to have at the road.
Yes, I think it looks like Ten Dam is starting to take a move here off the front as well, and it's opportunity time for the guys that have a little bit further off in general classification. We can see Pinot, when he made the move, of course, he was marked immediately, where the other guys are allowed to have a bit more of an advantage.
Yeah, Pinot as well. I think just stuck my knife into some further back. Roland has indeed spun back on. That's good news for him. Not such good news at the moment for Monteguti, who's heading backwards. He was one of the helpers from AG2 Le Mondial. And you saw Richie Port. He's going to be the big loser today, Sean, if this carries on.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see what Richie Port can limit his loss to. We can see there in the group of favourites there's a bit of a slowdown, looking at each other, but I don't think it's going to be for long.
I don't think so either. Somebody's going to be tempted. Look at the way Bardet, there he is in the white jersey, number 82. He's ahead of the world champion. He's ahead of course, Frank Schleck as well, the Luxembourger, who's completely unzipped with his white 3D cinematic spectacles on, or at least they look that way. Horner's back there as well. It's a great group of riders, this. Valverde, you just got the feeling he's waiting to put some pace in, and I think there's going to be an injection late on. I think Pierre Rolland is just happy to be here, frankly. He might recover. There is another little respite ramp before the last big one up to the flatter section at the line. Well, rock and roll, and there we go. It's Valverde. It was. We said he looked fresh, and so it proves, and off he goes. Now Valverde started the day 2 minutes and 47 down. Now he's bidding for to move into second place, and Nibali waited, watched, thought, is it going to be a short one? And then when he saw him going round the corner, he thought, I've got no choice, I've got to chase on, and that's what he's done.
Yes, and he looked at Van den Broek for a moment to see was he going to chase. He did not continue, so Nibali himself just rides across at a strong pace, did not try to match Valverde, and of course Valverde, he's quite explosive, and it's the good thing to do. If you just can ride across at a little bit of a slower pace, it conserves a fraction of energy.
Bardet, you'll see the white jersey just coming around the corner. You can see him, he's zipping it up and is ready. He takes a bottle of water and just empties it upon himself. So does Nibali. These are hard men, don't forget, who are used to working in extreme conditions. Nibali seems to function when the weather is extremely bad. Well, it's extremely hot today, and Valverde said at the top of the day, I like that just fine, thank you very much. And so it's proving right now, and he's winding in everybody, and look what's happened further back. The line has snapped back to some big fish here, and I'm afraid Pierre Rolland has been found out with 10 kilometers to go, and he's not alone. He's in good company by there, but there's some very good riders up the road, and the motorcycles having to really accelerate just to find them on the road here. They get back on, they find 10 Dam, who was part of that little push away. Still 2 riders up the road, and it's Romain Bardet who's fighting to get back onto these guys right now, with still Micah and Koenig just divorced ever so slightly from the big GC contenders. 9.5 to go, Sean.
Yes, and we can see here it's Valverde who is pushing on. He's continuing on setting the pace, and it's going to be, as I think, shortly lived for 2 men out front. Valverde knows that this is the opportunity. He can move quite a lot in the general classification, but still with 9.5 kilometers to go, it's a long way to the finish. But when you have the other guys' general classification in difficulty, you just have to continue.
And there they are, just a little bit further back, including the white jersey of Bardet. And here is Bardet, close at hand right now, and that's Frank Schleck. And well, you've got to find your time and indeed use your foils, and teammates almost getting into each other. The 2 principals from AG2R Le Mondial, Perrault and Bardet, riding together, and I suggest Perrault needs to ride for Bardet here. He's higher placed up the order. He's possibly got his own advantages, his own race, of course, in his mind. TJ Van Garderen just latches onto these guys, and indeed it's Perrault that picks it up, and they're dragging these guys up the mountain, the 2 AG2R boys. They can't allow the others to get too far away, and they know that.
Well, they have to continue, making a pace here, and we could see that it was Bardet who took it up. Now it's TJ Van Garderen, but they all know that they have to try, work together a bit, and that is the problem. To get organised here is totally impossible, but with the AG2R with 2, they've missed this move, so now they have to try and keep this pace up, not to allow Valverde and Nibali to take too much advantage.
Yeah, we'll get those gaps for you popping up in a moment. There was a quick flash of them there. Hopefully we'll get it. There we are. That's better. So 18 seconds is the gap between the Nibali group and the Bardet group. So the Bardet group, likewise, Mollema has very, very much an interest. He starting off today in 8th place. Perrault just in front of him, then TJ Van Garderen. So All those guys who are just out the top 5. Big loser from that secondary group is Romain Bardet at the moment. And here they sail themselves into a corner, trying to flatten the road out, Sean. Flat is what we don't have today.
No, well, there isn't any flat from here to the finish in the final 8.4 kilometres, and we can see here, you know, nobody wants to commit for too long a time, and there is a slope because we see Costa coming back here, Horner, Roland, so that tells that there's a slowdown in this group, and you know, the way they're grouping together. Is it that they're not able? Everybody is just on the limit and just trying to get through here. It's Mick Rogers is on the front at the moment, setting the pace.
Wow, well, that group back to Bardet is now expanding dramatically. Micah and doing a superb job. It looks like we've got a group of rare breeds on display here. Certainly have, when it comes to the road, we have a lot of talent right towards the front, and even amongst the greats, some of them are really starting to suffer. We have a quartet right now who are chasing on a duo up front, Sean, and Bardet's having to bury himself. He's leading everybody on. They're leaning on him, Sean.
Well, he is the one who is starting to, you know, panic, and he has to, you know, do something, because he's placed in the general classification. We have, you know, Valverde, who was originally in front of him, but I think he wants to, you know, hold up there. Pino, who is in 5th place, just a place behind Bardet, and you know, he knows that he has to try and do something here, and he's, you know, he's riding a bit, but he's trying to get the others to contribute as well.
Pino may vault Bardet and keep Bardet in 4th place, because Richie Porte's going backwards, unfortunately. Micah and Koenig for Team Netap Endura took a tumble early in the race, and unfortunately that has more or less DQ'd him from bidding for overall glory. But he's active today. He's out front, he's got a chance. It's only 19 seconds though, don't forget, back from that duo up front to this whole quartet of quality. Thibaut Pinot starting off the day in 5th place for Francis Desjeux in the blue. There he is, just behind him, Valverde, Mr. Heat. He's turning it up today. In fact, he instigated this move, essentially. Nibali followed on, suddenly realised that it was the one that was going to stick, and so it's proved. And Lawrence Ten Dam, the Wolfman, who's just hanging on at the moment. These guys hanging on for glory. It wasn't a day that was billed as suiting Romain Bardet, just not focused enough, not peaky enough. Well, it's a long old grind, and at the moment they're being ground down. It's going to be very close for Bardet between he and Pinot. He's got to find something late on, and he's got 7.6 kilometers to go. 19 seconds is the gap between the duo up front and this, the yellow jersey with Nibali and friends. Bardet, 1 minute and 4. That gap just starting to close, I think, as these guys ease up and maybe realise they need to keep something back.
Well, I think there's a little bit of concern here on the front. Nobody wants to commit at 100% at this point, because 7.5 kilometers to finish, but they are, you know, sharing the pace in the front. We see Valverde, you know, wants to continue on. Pino also wants to push on. Nibali is the one, when we've come back to him, he doesn't seem to be right in the front at all for the moment, and he's just happy to follow. And of course, he is, you know, making big advantages in the general classification, because Richie Porte at 2:23, I think he was a concern for them, and he's going to slip, you know, a long ways off that place he had going into today's stage.
Richie Porte is 2 minutes and 40 down at the moment, so not 25 off that for Nibali, and you'll see that it's another 2 minutes to be added on to the disadvantage that Richie Porte had, the deficit. So he's going to be over 4 minutes, about 4.5 minutes down, unless he can pick something up very late on. But he's with his Sky teammate Niev back there, and it's not a great place to be. 25 seconds is this group off the duo of leaders, and 1 minute and 9 is the Bardet group. So there are only 35 seconds now back here, so Bardet moves back into 3rd place, and now he wants that 3rd place, he wants that podium, and maybe even he wants even more than that. He wants it a lot. Does he want it too much, Sean?
Well, I think he has no choice. He has to kind of continue on here, and you know, he's been made aware that the advantage out the front is there, and he has to continue on. You know, open the pace, putting in attacks, and you know, that's what he's got to do. You either ride on the front with everybody sitting away, but you just keep, or otherwise you keep on putting in these bursts of speed just to limit the time advantage to the yellow jersey and the other favourites out in front.
There we are. He has an unusual look about him, Romain Bardet. He's a peculiar looking character, but look at this. This is an unbelievable push as well. Well, you better believe it, and everyone else should as well. We were wondering what Nibali had left, and now he's finally showing it, Sean, and he's putting the hammer down. And what's the response? Well, the result is a gap. Look at this.
Yes, we could see there that Pinot and Valverde wanted to react, but the power of Nibali here, and that is a surprising one, because still with 6.4 kilometres, a long ways out. He could have allowed those riders to continue on setting the pace, wait until maybe 3 kilometres to finish, but hitting them a long ways out, that tells he's feeling real good.
Sending shockwaves through the quartet, and the first man to be hit and down is Ten Dam. He left behind as they picked it up, and Nibali goes on the attack. This is what he did in the Giro d'Italia when he won that. He wants to be one rare breed of man who has had all the Grand Tours, and he wants this one, and right now he's working for it, and he makes his way back to the front. This was the duo up ahead of him. He's got 6.2 kilometres ahead of him right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes his 3rd stage win of this Tour de France, and you wouldn't bet on any more going his way as well, as Bardet also shows some mettle out of that group.
Yes, and what an attack by Nibali. He just rides away from Valverde and Pinot. You can see the gap he's taken out of them is huge in a very short time. You know, now he's made it into that Moika Koning 2 up front, and he's going to just follow them for the time being. And Bardet also, you know, he is still very aggressive and putting an attack there. Seems to have got away from the other big favourites for the moment.
Fabulous racing up this mountain. Vincenzo Nibali answered a lot of questions when he won into Sheffield at the start of this Tour de France. Stage 2, don't forget. He made his team, who've been critical of him in public, eat their words. Well, they were all matey then, were they not? And finally, he proved the point by underscoring that victory with a fantastic victory up to Les Planches de Belleville. Right now, the first real Alpine test, and he looks like he's in his pomp. Is he going to go for 3 wins? Well, Bardet knows the gravity of what's just been imposed up front, and he knows that some are hurting, and one of those is Pinot, who is a big threat to him, and indeed his podium ambitions, because Richie Porte's gone backwards. It could be a podium place so far for Romain Bardet by the end of this day, and what's that man, Alejandro Valverde, got to offer up? We thought it looked like his day. He's 24 seconds behind his nemesis.
It's a huge advantage in such a short time, and we can see Valverde, you know, just working away here with Pinot, but up front, Nibali just has to ride with the 2 men he's just joined up with, and that tells that, you know, to make that effort, get across to the 2 guys, and more so take, you know, such amount of time out of Valverde, Pinot, he is really just flying up this climb.
He certainly is. Be very afraid. Nibali is absolutely in his pomp. Well, let's have a look. They're looking at each other and saying, come on, I'm not going to do this all on my own. And when they start arguing, then you know that there's no real will or indeed ability to chase on. Has the day burnt them, Sean?
Well, I think, yes, the day has, you know, really tested everybody, and some it certainly has burdened, and it's a question, you know, when you're out there, and if you're in Bardet's group or if you're in Valverde's group, you have to make the calculation how you feel, and I see Valverde there with Pinot. Pinot is setting a real strong pace. He wants Valverde. He gave the signal for Valverde to come through, but Valverde, you know, was shaking his head. He knows that he's just pretty close to the limit, sitting on Pinot, so he wants just to stay with him and follow him for as long as possible.
And suddenly he responds and picks it up. It's on a flatter ramp, this one, so somewhere he feels more comfortable. Moving into that 5 kilometre to go marker. Well, I've got to tell you that the last 4 really quite hurt. It'll be the next three, indeed, that really take it out of them. It then does flatten towards the finish, but it won't feel like that by the time they get to the end. They will know all about it. There's the little kick. Valverde punishing Pinot.
Well, I don't know what the tactic is there, because that is not the way you ride with a guy who was setting the pace on the front and, you know, pushing on real strong. You stay in his wheel. When he asks you to come through, you say no. Well, that means that, you know, you're starting to suffer. Then suddenly he attacks him, and I'd not be surprised now if Pinot just sits on the wheel of Valverde and say, well, you can do it now, because if you start doing that tactic, I'm not riding with you.
There you are. It's ungentlemanly conduct in the heat of the day. Maybe a little bit of brain fade. Well, Bardet is still really having to do all of the work here, and I think it's the simple fact that his teammate just can't offer up anything in terms of assistance. I think Perrault would like to, he just can't.
No, I think he's just on the limit, just hanging there, as we can see. Bolka-Malema also, a lot of movement on the bike, really just on the end there, trying to hold on to this group.
5 minutes and 22 seconds. Richie Porte down on Vincenzo Nibali, which means he's going to be nearly 6 minutes down. Had he started 6 minutes down today, he'd have been outside of the top 10. That's a real tumble from somebody who was being billed as potential runner-up in this tour.
Yes, I think one of the big favourites after paying a big price today on this first Alpine stage, and that was a question this morning: who would be the one who would, you know, get into a situation, lose so much time that they would go totally out of the general classification, and it's Richie Porte from Sky.
Well, Bardet finally making a little push and finding an ally to get out of the pack, but Valverde here still in argument zone, I'm afraid, with Pinot, and they're sharing duties nicely. 4 kilometers to go. Not Valverde, you understand. And look at this. You just don't want Nibali with you at a moment such as this. There's been no negotiation. Nibali will take another stage victory. He felt like he had so much to prove coming into this Tour de France, and boy, is he proving it.
Well, certainly is, and you know, the way he attacked from these two rides we have on the screen at the moment, Valverde and Pinot, it was an impressive attack, and gets across to the two leaders out in front, Micah and Koning, and you know, starts to walk pretty quickly, and they're still walking quite well together. The three seem to be sharing the pace, where we see with Valverde and Pinot, they're having a discussion all the time, and that's not helping. You know, they're losing a little bit of time all the time as they do that.
There's the yellow jersey, and, well, Nibali took it in Sheffield, don't forget. Went into that colour. He held it for an awful long time. He lent it out to Galopin and then took it back. It really looks his by rights, and in this sort of performance, Sean, you wouldn't bet against him going all the way.
Well, I think we did say today was going to be the first indicator of who was going to win the Tour, who would be on the podium in Paris, and certainly Nibali is, you know, showing now that he is the one that's going to go all the way, and it looks like from here on it's going to be the battle for the second and third place on the podium.
Certainly looks that way right now. Romain Bardet is setting his stall out big time. 3.4 kilometers to go, and we're just doing the catch-up run right now. There's Bardet's teammate with Frank Schleck. Sorry, I thought we were going to do a sail-by here. Good effort by them, but they really are on their limit. Bardet showing an amazing amount of freshness and maturity for a young man, and Nibali decides that he does indeed want a trio of victories. You never know where the wins come, Sean, and greatness is often counted in terms of stages. You accept the yellow, and then you just measure how great it was by how much damage you imposed on everybody else.
Well, I think Nibali is just too strong for the other two breakaway companions, Micah and Koning. We could see that he just rides away at a strong pace, not attacking, but they're not able to follow that pace.
Three kilometers from home. Well, Bardet and Van Garderen riding together at 1 minute and 13. I guess it's going to be the gap between they and Pinot and indeed Valverde that counts, because it's going to be about minor places. There's one man who is in another place, it seems, and you're looking at him right now, Vincenzo Nibali. Well, a man it's easy to run out of expletives to describe. He's just outstanding.
It's impressive, and you know, he has been impressive right through this tour. We've seen him, of course, before in Vueltas, in Giros. This year we had, you know, a little bit of a concern in the early part of the season, difficulty finding his form. The Dauphiné of recent, not at his best, but as we see in the first stages of this Tour de France, you know, he looked to be in fabulous form, but you have to wait for the real difficult stages, and the ones we have never seen any difficulty, and today just really top shape, and I think he's coming to his best, if not at his best, and that is so important. When you find your form just at the start of a Tour of France, well then, you know, you can just go on from there.
This is a good ride from Frank Schleck, who's discovering his form yet again. The form books, though, coming into this Tour de France, nobody had Nibali as favourite, and to be honest, riding like this, even Contador and Froome at their very best would have difficulty coping with him.
Well, what a battle it would be, because the way Nibali is riding, I think he would be able to, you know, really cause problems for the other two big favourites. You know, the real big ones coming into this race. Unfortunately, they went out with crashes, and yes, Nibali now, he's just ahead of the rest.
Valverde is only, just trying to do the maths very quickly here, 25 seconds ahead. Less than that now. Suddenly, seconds get trimmed off it. Only 23 seconds or so from Valverde. In fact, my maths failing me dramatically there. There we are. Yes, that gap narrowing, though, and Bardet is moving into second place in this, onto the podium, I should say. Valverde moving up to second place, ports down the mountain, but one man is head and shoulders like a beacon ahead of everybody, and you're looking at him. It is Vincenzo Nibali. What an outstanding performance. Here we are. This is Van Garderen and Bardet having bridged over to Ten Dam, who's part of that very select group. Well, the Wolfman has been bitten, I'm afraid, and he's not going to be the last, not on this Tour de France. We're only just into the high mountains, let's not forget. And what a marker this man is setting down. He's drawn a line in the granite, not the sand, Sean. Who on earth is going to cross this?
Well, it looks very difficult for anybody to be able to challenge him. The form he's shown at the moment on, you know, the real big test of the tour, the first major test, and he's proving he's, you know, way ahead of the rest. But again, there's no guarantee as you go on in the race that you can have an off day. You can get, you know, a little bit into difficulty as the race goes on. But on today's forum, it looks like that's very difficult to see anybody challenge him for the overall victory in this Tour de France.
It's quite remarkable. 1.9 kilometres to go, and Nibali is heading for his third stage win of this Tour de France, a tour he now completely controls, and this is a display of power and poise like no other. It was a huge day. Well, we know he can function beautifully in the blizzards. That's how he won the Giro d'Italia, for goodness sake, last year, and now he's proving he can cope with a furnace. White hot, wearing yellow. Amazing. Well, Valverde and Pino trying to ride on and limit their damage. But it's all going to be about this man at the end of the day, and possibly, I think, at the end of the tour. Valverde there at 46 seconds. Bardet, well, there we are. 1 minute and 17 down with Perot now down the mountain. And Richie Porte heading for 7 minutes off. Wow. If you wondered what the difference was, it's Nibali. Great effort by Bardet. He goes another 2 kilometres to go, Banner, but Nibali himself is heading for glory. This is a good closing by Bardet, showing a great deal of maturity. Take nothing away as well from TJ Van Garderen, who's done a lot of the chasing on. TJ starting in 6th place, don't forget. No time bonuses at the line in this year's Tour de France. It's all honest endeavour. The gaps count. And let's not forget Koenig and co. just behind Valverde. Creditable performance by them, but it's the GC names that you have upon your screen naturally. 1,200 metres, a little less than that. I think transponder's just out of kilter. We may well be wrong. Certainly into the barrier sections right now, and that'll be welcome to just about everybody, and especially these guys as well. The young rider's jersey there on the back of Bardet, just hugging the back wheel of Van Garderen, who's done a great job actually of allowing himself to be used in this way. I think he knows that Bardet is possibly spent on this very, very long drag. Class act on display, and Nibali is going to sail this one in. Koenig doing a fantastic job of just leading everybody else in today. It was a good, brave effort by that pairing, wasn't it?
Well, I think they seem to be coming back, Koenig and Jamaica. We can see there the advantage. It looks to be getting less for Nibali, our yellow jersey, but I think is it going to be a little bit too late? Although it's just inside the kilometre, we'll have to see the next pictures we get. Have they got anything to really put up a bit of a sprint in the end to challenge Nibali for the stage victory?
I think Koenig's got a kick on him when he needs it, but he needs more than that now. And these guys, well, they're not going to be friends at the end of this one. There's been a bit of kidology, I'm afraid. Valverde just wanted it too much and basically buried his manners in the mountain, I'm afraid. And Pinot won't like that at all. There'll be no Christmas cards between these guys. No. It's a holiday postcard that's being written by Valverde at the moment. He has 600 metres to go, and it will say, having a very nice time in the mountains. Wish you weren't here, or glad you're not. We're glad he's here. Sails round these corners, and this is a man fresh, at peace, and indeed at the very height of his powers, Sean. He's found his form, he's going to find the line, and he's going to find his third victory on this Tour de France. Nobody's going to stop him.
No, certainly not going to stop him today as he goes for the line here. Just time to zip up his jersey, and you know, the two chasers not that far off, but just nothing left. Everybody on the limit here, and Nibali, what a performance here in the first Alpine stages, and it looks like, yes, is there anybody going to challenge for this Tour de France from here on out?
Well, we've still got a lot of racing to go, but this man has a lot of talent, and he showed much of it today. There are reserves there, and he can dig deep when he needs to. Coming across the line, Micah and Koenig, brave podium finishers today. What might have been, and Koenig slaps the bars as if to say, if we'd worked together, we could have had that. To be honest, they and everybody else were worked over by Nibali. Pinot comes to the line, and I think this is going to be the last little bit of punishment. It's been a cheeky one between these two, almost spiteful in their attempts at distancing the other. And it's Valverde who comes across the line, and that's going to upset a few out there. You can imagine. He doesn't care. He's lost friends in the past. He can afford to lose a few more. And listen to the roar. This is fantastic. It's about the time gap, Sean. It's about podium places. And I think that Bardet has got himself one. He's heading in, albeit guided by TJ Van Garderen. And the young man in the white jersey can now start thinking about the Champs-Élysées and taking a step. Step up, Romain Bardet, leader and class act of the youngsters here. Gives a slap on the backside to TJ Van Garderen. An acknowledgement of the help he got up the climb here. A long old drag. 10 down, the latest to drag himself over the line. It's going to be a long old wait, Sean, and some big names that maybe could have had something out of today are going to list themselves as also rounds, I'm afraid. It's been a one-man display, really.
Yes, what a display, and what a selection. And yes, we did see the attacks coming quite early. 10 kilometres out, they started really to push on, and it really tested the men. Anybody that was suffering this group, as we can see, Perrault coming over here, Van den Broek, 2:10 roughly, so they have lost quite a lot of time, but it's really been a big selection, and not surprising with the conditions we've had, the distance of this climb and the way they tackled it from a long way from the finish.
Here they come then. This is Pierre Roland. He would have expected more. I think his team would have expected more today. More than that, he's been beaten by other Frenchmen, and that counts for a lot in this part of the world. World champion Rui Costa also here. Michael Rogers, brave soul that he is, and Chris Horner, veteran, 42 years of age, winner of the Vuelta Tour of Spain. Just too much today. Sean, we had so much heat and so much punishment with the altitude. Apparently the temperature's going to drop tomorrow, but I'm expecting it to be equally as contested as we've had today.
Well, I think, yes, we've seen that sort of race, aggressive race in the last days, and I think, yes, tomorrow's going to be no different.
Confirmation of how they finished. Nibali takes his third stage win of this Tour de France. .33 seconds the gap between Valverde and Bardet today, but this man is just speeding away no matter what it seems they throw at him in terms of incline.
Yes, and we can see provisional general classification. Nibali, of course, you know, pulls an advantage. Valverde, it looks like that, moves into second place. Romain Bardet will be in third place, and Pinot in fourth.
TJ Van Garderen making up the top 5. What changes we've had, and we still wait for this man. And what a shame. Sean, I hate using the expression the big loser of the day, but in terms of time, that's exactly what we've had. Richie Porte will have his other days, but how do you come back from a gap like this that's been found or delivered to you in spades, really, on a day like this?
Well, it's difficult to come back because you know, the morale takes a big hit, and you know, you lose every opportunity or possibility for the general classification, but you have to try and recover, and this is the first day of the big test for the general classification, Ben.
There's your general classification. Nibali leads Valverde, leads Bardet. What a day. So many of you mightily impressed with Vincenzo Nibali's performance. I'm amongst you. You know, it was actually, despite all the brutality, it was quite beautiful in the end. How calm and collected does he look after all that? Remarkable. What a day we've had from me and Sean. We're going to make our way down off this mountain and climb a few more for you. Hope you enjoyed the day. We certainly did.
Of the Tour de France, he controls the yellow race water stage Greg LeMond today here in Chamrousse. Vincenzo Nibali is the strongest of them all.
He won that with ease, and it looks to me like the race is over, although it's still a long ways to go. It's surprising. Excuse me. Just the surprising thing was the lack of his teammates at the end of the race, and but he had an easy, clear victory over everybody. Valverde kind of didn't surprise me, but I'd say Thibaut is probably Thibaut Pinot is really for me the highlight of the day, and his aggressiveness and in the way he raced you got two young guys kind of wedged between some older riders, and they're the future.
The big loser of the day is by far Richie Porte. The Australian riders is about to arrive as we talk. It's going to lose around 10 minutes, I think. It was seconds this morning in the GC. It will be dropping down in the classification. And now it's Alejandro Valverde who's sitting in second with Romain Bardet in third and Thibaut in fourth position. Greg, would you expect it that Richie Porte today would have been losing so much time?
Actually, I actually didn't know what to expect because he's had, in the past couple of years, he's had a couple of days where he's not really on top of it. So today's conditions, you know, you have a bad day and it doesn't mean he's out of the race completely. For GC he is, but I'm certain he's disappointed. I'm certain Sky Team is disappointed because they were counting on him and they believe that he would be even contending for the victory. And it is a surprising loss today for him.
We see here Geraint Thomas together with Michael Nieve supporting the Australian, the new leader of the Team Sky. It's now 8 minutes. He hasn't finished yet. He's going to lose around 9 minutes. And he was dropped at the very early beginning of the Col de Chamrousse today. He couldn't stand at the pace that both Movistar and Astana put in today's final climb.
It looked like he was totally empty, kind of no juice, no energy. And it's, who knows whether weather conditions really did it, but he's not in the race, unfortunately.
What a terrible Tour de France it is for the Team Sky. They lost Christopher Froome, last year winner, and now the new leader is losing about 9 minutes, as we see here on the very last meters of today's stage, together with Geraint Thomas, Michael Nieve, the two lieutenants of the Team Sky. And it's a brand new Tour de France that is starting today, with Richie Porte being out of contention. Now it seems like, here it is, 8 minutes 52 seconds. We can say today that Richie Porte will not win the Tour de France. Now it's going to be all about Vincenzo Nibali, Alejandro Valverde, the very young Romain Bardet, maybe Thibaut Pinot. Do you think the contention for the GC can be limited to 4 riders?
Yeah, I really don't see anybody beating Nibali unless he has a jour sans, where he's empty one day. But no, and the only other weakness he has is maybe his team is not there and not strong enough. But you don't have to have a really strong team if you're walking away from everything with such ease. I mean, he would have just waited, actually just timed it, went at his own pace, and took quite a bit of time out of everybody. And it wasn't, I don't think the climb it wasn't nearly as difficult as I think everybody anticipated, and it looked like he was on a good, hard racing day, but not one that he had to drop Contador or Chris Froome on.
Now, Greg, you were talking about the Astana team. It is true that it's the only question mark for Vincenzo Nibali, yet the Astana team had troubles today. They started to lose Tanel Tangert and the Kazakh rider there, Tanel Tangert, at 50 kilometers to go, and Gustav as well. They were dropped very early in the race. Then after that, 2 main riders for the team Astana were dropped as well. Michele Scarponi and Liu Estra. Here we see them. They were at the very back of the bunch. And at that moment, we say, wow, there is only Jakob Fuglsang together with Vincenzo Nibali. But guess what? Jakob on the downhill, he went wide. He crashed.
I think he hit a water bottle, is what I heard.
And here we see the pictures. And at that moment, we say, wow, Vincenzo's going to be all alone for the last climb.
Yeah, he was pretty isolated, and again, the good thing about this stage was it was down, you know, descend a mountain, you're up climbing again. So, you know, I would say that he wasn't having to control the race; other teams were controlling it, and Francais Lejeune was doing quite a good pace. And but it is one of the big, I'd say, worry parts.
Sorry to interrupt you. Look at this picture here. It's the only moment when Vincenzo Nibali had a doubt, because through the radio, his sport director is telling him, Fuglsang is on the ground. You are only with one team member of the Astana team. Slow down, control the pace, let the teammates join him back. And Tanel Tangert joins back at that moment, and he's going to be a key rider for the last climb. But Tanel Tangert setting a good pace for Vincenzo at the bottom of the climb.
Yeah, I think as a team, you have some bad days, and I think everybody's done a lot of work on the Astana team, and they're going to be back tomorrow. Having a yellow jersey motivates a lot of riders, but you know, it was a pretty clear-cut race, and it was a fairly simple race when you think about it. And Nibali just stayed with everybody. You know, when a few people tacked, he decided he had enough, and he took off.
Yeah, when Rafa Majka and Leopold Koenig tried to make the difference, Vincenzo Nibali dropped quite easily both Alejandro Valverde, Thibaut Pinot, and he went for a solo win here in Chamrousse. Alexander Vinokurov is the team manager of Astana. He's definitely a happy man today.
Now we are around Astana team bus. Of course, delighted atmosphere here. Alexander, encore une fois, Vincenzo Nibali a écrasé la concurrence.
Alexander again, Vincenzo Nibali smashed the competition. Yeah, it wasn't an easy day for the team. Stage 13, we knew it was going to be a tricky one for us, but we also knew it could be a good one for us. We lost Jakob, who's one of the strongest of our team, so but the other guys made the jobs slightly easier up to the last climb. We saw Richie Port had a bad day, which is good for us, but then Vincenzo took the opportunity to get out there and work with the other French guys and get out there and just do really, really well. Congratulations to the team. Can you see anyone beating Nibali so far? Well, today he's shown who's the boss. They've all understood. So we knew Valverde was a threat. There are a bunch of guys trying for the podium, and tomorrow it's going to be a tough stage. We hope that we have Fluslang back tomorrow, of course, because it's a very hard day. He needs his team. But some of our team were not as strong as others from other teams. So one work about Jakob Fluslang. Well, we saw him, but we're not entirely sure why he fell. But he's back underway, so it's not a very bad fall, but it's always painful. So tomorrow with the heat, it's going to be hard for him to recover, but we'll find a way of controlling the race, and Jakob will recover for the last week.
A very diplomatic Alexander Vinokurov thinks about his rider. He's thinking about Jakob Fluslang, he's thinking about Tangert. It is true, they spent a lot of energies today to help this gentleman, this rider, this champion. He has won the Giro, he has won the Vuelta, is now set to win the Tour de France. Those are the decisive moments of today's stage. Easy attack. It looked so easy, Vincenzo, Greg.
It did, actually. He doesn't have quite the punch that you see with Chris Froome when he attacks, but he slowly went away, and I mean slowly, he went away fairly fast, but not in quite such a dramatic form, and I don't think he needed to. I don't think he was doing it. He just kind of, pushed himself at a good to moderate pace, not really all flat out, and he dropped everybody quite easily, and just shows I think he's a deserving leader right now. He's raced perfectly through the first 10 days, no crashes, nothing really, he's raced flawlessly, and I think he's just going to keep dominating through the Tour.
He has the time to zip his jersey, he has the time to take advantage of this goal. Is the moment here. It's his third stage wins on the Tour de France for Vincenzo Nibali. Vincenzo Nibali happy at our Eurosport microphone.
Beh, questo è solo un soprannome. No, che dire, sono molto contento perché
it's a special day today. I'm very happy. I just wanted to gain some time, much time as I could. I knew Valverde was close to me. Port was very close to me as well. Port had a problem though, and he was dropped. In the end, there was only Valverde and me, and in the end, I just felt stronger than Valverde, and it's a hot day. I felt like I was in Palermo or in Messina, my hometown. So.
Anniversario tragico della morte di Fabio Casartelli, questo 18 luglio straordinario con questa tua terza vittoria.
Oggi è stata sicuramente una bellissima vittoria per me e per l'anniversario di Casartelli.
You know, it's the 100th anniversary of Gino Bartali today. I was very delighted by this. To do such a great result on this day, it's fantastic.
Grazie tanto Vincenzo. Ci vediamo dopo.
Thank you, Vincenzo. Very well done.
Era l'anniversario di Kivilev, di cui era un amico molto vicino.
Yesterday it was the anniversary of Kivilev. He was a good friend of Vinokurov, so I'd like to mention him too.
July, and Vincenzo Nibali reminds that it's the anniversary of the Fabio Casartelli's accident and death on the roads of the Tour de France. It's also the anniversary of Gino's Bartali date of birth, so it's a very significant day today for all the Italian cycling movements, and Vincenzo wanted to thank and think about those two great champions, Gino Bartali on one side and the lost Fabio Casartelli. Now, Greg, let's have a look at the GC, how it stands after stage 13, because we see that Vincenzo Nibali is in yellow. Alejandro Valverde is second at 3:37. Romain Bardet jumps into the podium place with 4:24 adrift. Thibaut Pinot is fifth. TJ, he had a good stage, 5:19. Gise Perrault, Bauke Mollema, Van der Broek, Rui Costa, Leopold Koenig. We don't have Richie Porte anymore among the top 10 riders. He lost over 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Richie Porte is the big loser.